Pity, he's been found out. There goes the only chance, Ma Xiao said sympathetically. The teammates around him also shook their heads. It was almost impossible now for the opponent to not take his presence seriously. Now that the opponents were paying full attention, the chances of victory were almost zero. Justin, in a situation like this, how many do you think could you kill? Ma Xiao asked. Justin was also watching while he was on his Skylink. Using brittle skin, 2 at most. No chance of killing more. But if I were using my own superior mech, there would be a 40% chance of victory. Come on, you're treating them as if they're idiots. They just need to stick together and play shamelessly. Still, there's no chance because time is running out. Ma Xiao laughed. Victory came either by fully eliminating the enemy team, or by destroying the enemy's fort. And now the red team's fort was in a precarious state, time was most precious. Having uncovered Skeleton's identity, the opponents were not going to scatter and allow him the opportunity to sneak attack. Surely enough, the war god #1 could not hide anymore, he had to move. But movement meant death. Under everyone's eyes, the war god #1 actually revealed his position immediately, rushing towards the 4 huddled mecha. God, what was this? At this moment, every staff member in the CT office stood up. Solon clenched his fist. He no longer had any paths of return. The stats for this battle kept rising in a straight line. Most frighteningly, through word of mouth, more and more people gushed in. They were all here to witness Skeleton playing brittle skin exceptionally well. But the circumstances definitely left everyone feeling despair. 4 against 1. The fort in danger. A desperate sprint, it was the final showdown. Although the war god #1 was hiding very close to the 4 mecha, it was still 50 meters away, but this was a fatal 50 meters. 2 demon wolf type 5s, 1 Bada type 5, and 1 beast type 3 against a suddenly rushing opponent. Their laser guns took aim at the same time. Hong hong long long, light radiated in all directions. The war god #1 rushed towards his opponents like a whirlwind. Everyone's mouths were agape. What was this speed? Wang Zheng pushed the throttle to the maximum and accelerated from inside the cockpit. Under the pilot's control, the war god #1 let out a thunderous sound. With this high-speed advance, lasers brushed past the mech narrowly. The lasers shot by the 4 mecha were either blocked by trees or dodged. Within an instant, the war god #1 pulled within the range of 20 meters. The second bombardment of lasers was executed in close proximity. Solon and company felt suffocated. This time there was no cover anymore. At this moment, the straight-moving war god #1 pulled off an arched slide step, a left arc, Lord. Right arc. The double arcs closed the distance between them immediately. In an instant, he was within close quarters combat range. The 4, seemingly also wanting to please the crowd, were not startled at all. The beast type 3 immediately advanced, using his body as a meat shield. Even if war god #1 had godly prowess, he probably didn't have much energy left after such a movement. The Bada type 3 followed up while both demon wolf mecha flanked. Inescapable, at this moment, the AI was eating through the fort's last line of defense. Given the current situation, it would only hold up for at most 20 seconds. Was 20 seconds enough to reverse the outcome dictated by the heavens? Ma Xiao shrugged helplessly. It was a pity that Skeleton would die so terribly after demonstrating a technique like consecutive arced slide steps. At their level, losing itself was not scary. It was more important to find out how one lost. Hong, the beast type 3, was sent flying. The war god #1 sprang out from the gap in an instant, his titanium knife breaking through. The Bada type 2 that followed completely had no idea what had happened to the beast mech. The opponent suddenly appeared in front of his eyes right after. The alloy blade cut into the cockpit. Sparks were flying everywhere, but in this period of at least 1 second, there was not enough time to pull out the titanium knife anymore. Both Demon Wolf Type 5 mecha were already assaulting. Double kill. The Bada exploded, but the Bada player still revealed a bright smile. Someone had to be sacrificed anyway. However, what surprised everyone was that the war god #1 suddenly pulled back and the mech swayed strongly. It was as if the 2 Demon Wolf mecha had made a mistake and missed. Their 2 titanium blades crisscrossed and fell on each other instead of on their target. At this moment, there was absolutely no time to activate energy shields. Both Demon Wolf Type 5 players watched as their own teammates stabbed towards themselves. They wanted to activate their energy shields, but their fingers pressed the buttons a tenth of a second too late, so close yet so far. Hong, triple kill. The system hyped, quadra kill. The system announced. At this time, the battle fort only had a bit of defense left. The war god #1 instantly drew his own titanium knife, landing on the beast type 3 with a backflip. Norton Star's two suns were shining brightly at this time, causing the titanium knife to dazzle blindingly as it stabbed towards the beast type 3's head. Hong, penta kill, 5 kills, team kill, red team win. Global notification. Congratulations, Skeleton. Pentakill. Reward of 100 points and 1 warrior's medal. Keep it up. The system sounded incomparably fierce and solemn, and there was utter silence everywhere. In CT's work hall, all of the staff members were stunned. What kind of operation was this? This was the rhythm of a god. Solin's hand trembled like a pendulum. His cigarette had already burned his finger, but he was not aware of it. All of the staff members looked towards Solin with expressions of worship. This director on the verge of transfer had actually made a judgment of godly accuracy. Solin waved his hand, calmly indicating for everyone to continue working. Legend has it that everyone heard the chairman burst into tears behind his office's locked door. The spectator zone was already boiling at this time. Even in the final 10 seconds, people were still coming in. Of course, some had come to watch the myth of Skeleton extinguish, but they instead saw the godlike operation. In CT, only a mech that was at least 80% destroyed counted as a kill. A triple kill was already incredible. A pentakill was a miracle. Pentakill under extreme conditions, godly operation. Godly knowledge. Godly rhythm. After the previous slaughter of Justin, Skeleton had performed yet another miracle. Wang Zheng removed his touch sensors and quietly reminisced the battle. His decision was rather accurate. He expected the opponent to be relaxed. Not that the enemies would be completed flawed, but rather relaxed due to the absolute confidence they would have. With that kind of mentality, the opponent's shooting would only be about 70 to 80% serious. Their formation was also completely within his expectations. Foresight in battle was of utmost importance. Seeing that his own operations were passable against noobs, Wang Zheng was not at all complacent. He knew that he was still in CT's lowest levels, yet this sort of battle definitely taught him many lessons. Nimble footwork was also extremely important. In random situations, one had to depend entirely on instincts. If he had insisted on holding on to the titanium knife, the outcome could have been disastrous. Fortunately, there were no weapons under Bonehead's training. Every part of the body was a weapon, and the opponent's weapons were, even more so, weapons, so why not use them? There was a warmth in his chest. It was quite a comfortable feeling. This indicated that the Rubik's Cube also approved of his realization. He did not battle merely in large amounts. Quality and proper reflection was more important. Student Wang was a good kid who loved learning. Wang Zheng finished off his drink before leaving. He could not waste the boss's act of sincerity. The CT forums in Asia were already exploding. Although the battle had ended, the mood of the players online was still fervent. Some battles were worth reminiscing. Their blood was still burning. When the replay of the battle was released, the forums erupted into discussions that were led by the experienced players. They were trying to compete with the official sources to release a quicker analysis. There truly existed crouching tigers and hidden dragons amongst the newbies. Most of the match was almost completely neglected by everyone. The last half a minute was the essence of the essence. The legendary penta kill, and it was a penta kill by a war god #1. Regardless of what level, what equipment, and what situation, anyone who did a penta kill would be one to watch, even more so when it occurred during such a counterattack. This kid is too sick. Justin was also reviewing the replay and was already at the stage of awe. He purposely waited until the fort was about to fall before he acted. Ma Xiao was also watching. It was not necessary for them to analyze, but the more they watched, the more shocked they became. They were definitely overlooking many details in their current state. Hiding in wait like a poisonous snake, such endurance. Oh, no matter who it was, they would think that victory was within their grasp. This fellow's close quarters combat skill is absolutely first class. Oh, I really can't wait for him to enter our world already. Justin and Ma Xiao looked at each other before turning off the video. This person was bound to enter their world, and then there could be a bloody revolution. Relax. How? The video analysis was released. The dodge at the start had already become a classic, but the 4 opponents still had an 80% chance at victory. However, when Beast Type 3 lose his defensive position, it was fatal. In the team fight, this had no use whatsoever. The rush was too aggressive. They were thinking that the opponent would not dodge, and they wanted to overthrow the opponent immediately. But they did not expect that the War God number 1 would fly so stably. The task seemed simple. Although the War God number 1 was faced with a big assault, from start to end, he did not lose his centeredness. The Bata Type 5 was a completely tragedy. Its only purpose was to keep Skeleton's knife stuck, and there was no room for the 2 Demon Wolf mecha to complain. In an instant, the War God number 1 made continuous displacements, and while it appeared to not move, it completely shook the centeredness of the 2 Demon Wolf mecha. Their attacks were crooked, and the War God number 1's subsequent operation was divine. Dang zan xian yi hao dai jie guang mang gan diao quang shou de shi hu, ta yi jing shang xian. When the War God number 1 brought the light and killed the beast, he had already become a god. This was the consensus of all the players viewing. This was a flawless battle. Skeleton godly pentakill. Master of battle techniques, master of control. A new generation of a war god was rising. Perhaps the novice zone had really been dull for too long. When a blockbuster like this happened, a strong chain reaction started. A review usually maintained high levels of attention for about 10 minutes, after which it would decline rapidly with time. But not this review. The increasing speed had already frightened staff. This was not your ordinary battle. It should not even occur by chance. Most frighteningly, every viewing would uncover new discoveries, more things that had previously been overlooked. The opponents were considered pretty good. The battle techniques and potential of the newbie squad trained by Team Black Tortoise was certainly outstanding. No one would believe that a team of such caliber was penta-killed. In the office, a fully concentrated Solon began to write sincere emails to all of the ranked players. If 100 emails were not enough, he would write 1,000. Wang Zheng had just left Brothers Net Cafe when his Skylink began to ring incessantly. It was Yi Zissou. What's up, Zissou? I hope your dormitory isn't too shabby, but on behalf of my dormitory roommates, I would like to invite you to join us for a gathering. Yi Zissou seemed pretty embarrassed. It seemed as though she was being coerced into doing so. Wang Zheng paused to consider the offer. Today's girls were pretty enthusiastic, he thought to himself, before replying, your offer is pretty enticing. Alright, then it's settled. I will be there this weekend to organize this. After saying so, she hung up the Skylink call, yet in the background, sounds of excitement coming from numerous girls could be heard. Wang Zheng shrugged his shoulders nonchalantly. He could feel the callings of a university life from this invitation. Jie Fang Mian Wang Tong Shui Hai Shi Bai Jiao Dan Ding Da. O Yi Wei Shang Qi Na Ki De Shen Ying. Ying Gai Yi Jing Yuan Zai Wan Wan Li Ji Wai La. With regards to this aspect, student Wang was pretty cool about it. Having such adorable thoughts was something he rarely had nowadays. At night, the dormitory was ablaze with chatter, a common occurrence. Firstly, they had to decide who would serve as the dormitory head. Yao Ailun gently adjusted his spectacles and said, in the future, we will all become brothers in arms. Naturally, the dormitory head will have to be the most capable individual. I am a meticulous individual, and with regards to lesson curriculum and information gathering, I am an expert. A glimmer of light could be seen in Yao Ailun's eyes. Zhang Shan gave a slight smile. I was my intermediate school's MMA champion. I will ensure everyone's safety. Similarly, Chen Xiu bashfully said, I'm the youngest here and hope to serve the rest of you. The three of them then looked in Wang Zheng's direction. Wang Zheng was sincerely disinterested in this competition for the role of dormitory head. Wang Zheng, although you might hail from the capital, this alone is not a legitimate reason for you to become the dormitory head, spoke Yao Ailun. Wang Zheng was a student that was specially admitted into the academy. Furthermore, he was the doctor's personal assistant. He could be considered an individual with significant influence. Coughs. I have no strong points so as to speak. However, what I would like to say is that for this weekend, the mecha department's girls would like to have a friendly gathering. Are you interested? Wang Jung asked. Zhang Shan's eyebrows creased. The mecha department? Do you intend to feed us to dinosaurs? Yao Ailun laughed mischievously. Being uncultured is truly frightening. The girls from the mecha department might not necessarily be pilots. Wang Jung, are they beauties? Don't throw us into the fire? Wang Jung pondered for a moment. If all the girls were of the same caliber as Yi Zissou, I have not met these girls personally before, but they ought to be beauties. One of them was known as the school's flower in my previous school. The three of them then looked at each other momentarily. Zhang Shan suddenly reached out to grab Wang Jung. Even if you're a tyrant, it's fine. I strongly recommend Wang Jung to serve as our dormitory head. In the future, we three brothers will rely on you. Ah, a school flower? It's my favorite kind of flower, Yao Ailun said as he gracefully wiped his spectacles, his eyes full of vigor. But what about me? A pitiful Chen Shu said as he pointed at himself. Sometimes, being the youngest was not an advantage. Little Shu, don't be anxious. We will take up and share your burden, so rest assured, Zhang Shan said as he patted Chen Shu vigorously, almost knocking him to the floor. Thus, student Wang was chosen to be the dormitory head. Sometimes, the reasons men come up with are nonsensical. However, Wang Jung had a feeling that if Yi Zissou's friends were indeed dinosaurs, these chaps would definitely have him overthrown. And this was how Aries College's first day of chatter had unfolded. Wang Jung was a good listener and these three had interesting backgrounds. Zhang Shan had chosen the physics department over the mecha department, the exact opposite of what Wang Jung would have chosen. There were indeed people from all sorts of background here. To Zhang Shan, physical exercise was just a hobby that was incomparable to the greatness of the scientific realm. Developing the mind was a never-ending journey. Just by looking at his large frame, one could not see at first glance that he was indeed an intelligent and refined modern youth. However, in Wang Jung's case, he was mulling over how he could quickly get rid of his attachment to the physics department and return to the embrace of the mecha department. That day would come eventually. Despite Wang Jung going to sleep with these lovely thoughts in his head, that night, he had a nightmare. He did not dream of Bonehead. No, it was worse. Xiao Fei was using his face to sharpen a sword. 1. Boy, while you live, your body belongs to me. When you die, your soul will belong to me. No matter how vast and wide the universe might be, you will always be a part of the physics department. In his dreams, Wang Jung repeatedly reassured himself that this was only a dream, and that it will all be over once he awakens. As the first rays of light lit up the sky, Wang Jung opened his eyes. Last night, the other three had thoroughly talked about all of the beauties they could conquer under the cosmos. 2. It seemed that even those of the physics department were extremely passionate about such matters. However, Wang Jung was not the sole one to wake up early. Zhang Shan's bed, the one opposite his, was already empty. When Wang Jung arrived at the gym court, he understood. He was not the only early bird. There were already numerous individuals carrying out their own forms of morning exercise. Zhang Shan's size was too eye-catching. He was only wearing a short-sleeved sweatshirt, so one could see the muscles rippling explosively underneath as he did his single-armed chin-ups. He looked extremely relaxed as he executed his chin-ups smoothly. Without paying any attention to the stares of those around him, Zhang Shan leapt to the ground with a single somersault. If there were any girls around, they would surely scream in excitement. Seeing Wang Jung, Zhang Shan was slightly surprised. I did not expect you to have the habit of training in the morning. Wang Jung gave him a smile and replied, my aim is to be a mech pilot after all. I have to keep on training. Zhang Shan looked at student Wang's small physique. Looking at your body size, I think you should just give up. You might still have a chance to enter the officers' department. A mech pilot would suffer a large burden on the body and thus not everyone is eligible. This is why the Earth's forces are insufficient. You should instead focus on your strengths and develop them. Wang Jung noncommittally replied, your body's toughness and flexibility is excellent, yet you're wasting your talent by not being a mech pilot. Zhang Shan laughed loudly. He now saw Wang Jung in a different light. Wang Zheng did not mention his muscles but rather the flexibility of his body, as though he was trying to hint at something. Do you want to compete? Zhang Shan asked without thinking. Wang Zheng waved his hands. I think you should continue training. If the opportunity arises, we will exchange pointers. Wang Zheng's first step was to cultivate the first level of his breathing art. The best effects were produced when this was done facing the morning sun. However, this was not taught by Bonehead but rather his father. This breathing technique allowed him to be one with the heavens. A newborn fetus is able to absorb the heaven and earth spiritual chi, but once one grows older, they will be less and less able to do so. Thus, this breathing technique allowed one to condition themselves to achieve such a state and absorb the chi. Wang Zheng had previously thought that this was a load of nonsense, but after cultivating the first level of the art, he had felt that it seemed slightly reasonable. He sat down facing the morning sun after finding an empty space. The first level of the breathing technique began to slowly circulate within his body. On the outside, it seemed as though the first level of the breathing arts operation was more difficult than the Rubik's Cube. However, the effects were slightly superior. Wang Zheng understood that the reason his father had tricked him into learning it was not ill-intentioned. Yet if he had not encountered the Rubik's Cube, perhaps he might not have had this opportunity to develop. After the chi finished circulating around his body, Wang Zheng felt utterly refreshed and reinvigorated. The morning sun's energy had left his body by now. Although the vast majority of it had returned back to nature, a trace amount still remained inside Wang Zheng's body. Wang Zheng, are you actually part of an evil cult? A delicate, smiling-faced Yi Zisu entered his field of vision. When did she arrive? Wang Zheng stood up and blinked his eyes. I was praying for my luck to improve, to enter the mecha department, and for us to become classmates again. That would be the dawn of a better era. Yi Zisu clicked her tongue. You're not as simple as I thought. You're making me the butt of a joke. As the two laughed and chatted, they did not notice that the attention of the surrounding people was focused on them. When Yi Zisu entered the school, she was the center of attention. Her profile picture on Aries College's website placed her in the top 10 of the most popular individuals. Furthermore, she was a beauty and was OMG's little princess. Who is that shifty-looking individual? He dares to stand next to Yi Zisu and chat with her for almost 30 minutes. I don't recognize him, but he should also be a student. I have never heard of him. FK. The wolves are numerous and the meat is limited. 3. We will have to do something. As there was an innumerable amount of senior students, the new male students had to give a 120% to show off their fighting spirit. There weren't many girls who liked to exercise in the morning. Yi Zisu was definitely the crane in a flock of chicken. 4. Wearing a white t-shirt and azure hot pants, coupled with her white sports shoes, she was the very definition of an unparalleled beautiful youth. Her looks had excited the hormones of numerous male students as they stared at her. Wang Zheng, are you going to introduce me? Who might this be? He had not noticed that Zhang Shan had walked over. This is my classmate from Dawn Middle School, Yi Zisu, also known as Beauty Yi. Before Wang Zheng could finish his introduction, Zhang Shan had already stretched his hand out towards Yi Zisu. Name's Zhang Shan. Wang Zheng's dormitory roommate. If anyone bothers you in the future, do not hesitate to find me. Yi Zisu raised her hand and shook his hand lightly. I have been looking forward to meeting you for some time. Dormitory 007 of the physics department is the pride of our school. Hee, well, somewhat. Actually, if you knew me better, you would already know that I am a person full of good points. Wang Zheng didn't know whether to laugh or to cry. This brother of his was indeed slightly shameless. He had thought that those from the physics department were more low profile. However, contrary to what he thought, Zhang Shan even took the initiative to stand out. Zhang Shan hurriedly gave Wang Zheng a wink and then secretly gave him a thumbs up. This situation was one of a kind, so he could not wait for the upcoming gathering. Wang Zheng helplessly shrugged his shoulders. It looked like they would not overthrow him from his position of dormitory head anytime soon. Does our dormitory have such a name? Wang Zheng asked. Yi Zisu looked at Wang Zheng in surprise. Zhang Shan, who was also standing at the side, looked at Wang Zheng as though he was an alien. Why are you looking at me like that? I want to faint. 5. I don't understand why Dr. Xiao Fei would hold you in such high regard. The physics department's O7's 4 special individuals, along with Masasi and Carl, are considered the pride of the school for this year. Under my guidance, the Aries College will definitely achieve new heights. Zhang Shan was completely unashamed. Wang Zheng scratched his nose. He had always struggled in poverty, so he didn't understand Zhang Shan's lofty ambitions and aspirations. Excellent, the physics department will be left in your hands. I will tell Dr. Xiao Fei to let you replace me as her assistant. Zhang Shan was excited. Why would he not be satisfied with this? A shocked Yi Zisu stood there, mouth agape. Although she knew that Wang Zheng loved mecha, she did not expect such a situation to occur. Aries College's sole specialty was Xiao Fei's space physics research. She was the Milky Way's pinnacle expert in this field. The other departments may be top tier on Earth, but compared to the rest of the galaxy, they could not even hold a candle to them. Brother, thank you for giving me face. I will continue to strive harder. Zhang Shan heavily patted Wang Zheng's back. Wang Zheng nonchalantly nodded his head. To him, being able to be rid of Xiao Fei was a brilliant thing. He had always told himself that Xiao Fei was nothing but trouble. Zhang Shan's eyes shone with curiosity. He had spared no force when he patted Wang Zheng's back, but he did not even budge. In fact, he felt an extremely strong recoiling force from his shoulders. He clicked his tongue. There was meaning to this now. This year's batch of students from Aries College still contained some crouching tigers and hidden dragons. 6. 1. Idiomatic expression that means to get ready for battle. 3. Not enough opportunities to go around. 4. Superior compared to the masses. 5. Expression meaning that they can't believe what they are hearing. Even though Yi Zisu was around, Wang Zheng did not allow her to affect his usual training routine. However, to circulate the first level of his breathing art, it also required one to match it with vigorous physical activity. The body had to be developed alongside the art to ensure its harmonious development. Student Yi, Wang Zheng was Dan Middle School's trump card, correct? Asked Zhang Shan. He had significantly calmed down already and seemingly no longer had a lecherous expression on his face, yet the lust in his eyes was still evident. Yi Zisu gave him a slight smile. What do you think? Haha, I want to understand him better. A person who can change Dr. Xiao Fei's opinion must be amazing. How strong can he be? When Zhang Shan spoke of Xiao Fei, his eyes shone with admiration and fervor. I'm afraid I will have to disappoint you. In all 4 years of middle school, Wang Zheng always struggled and barely maintained a passing grade on his subjects. He was only able to enter Aries College after the final term. What? Zhang Shan lost his calm and shouted, this cannot be the case. Actually, I also felt the same way you did. This cannot be possible. Yi Zisu glanced at the slowly jogging Wang Zheng. She didn't understand it herself. Just how in the world was his brain wired? No need to worry, there will be plenty of time for us to get to know him better. Zhang Shan laughed. A new school, a new environment, there would definitely not be a dull moment. School had started for 2 days already, but this was the time school clubs were most rapidly searching for new members. The 2 sides of the schoolyard were strewn with banners, theater companies, dancing troupes, and beautiful girls. They were the focus of everyone's attention, but on the other end of the spectrum, there were clubs which no one was interested in. For example, the CT War God Club. To stir up emotions and gather people, they had a slogan, no beauties here, but having brothers is just as good. It was the only club for men to distinguish themselves. Other clubs, such as Wushu, MMA, and the boxing club, also managed to attract new members, yet they could not compete with those other clubs. However, for dear student Wang, he was completely neglected. This was because he had the physics department's insignia on him. When guys of the physics department came, everyone politely declined them. The CT club was bustling with activity and Wang Zheng was actually extremely interested in it. Yet after thinking about it, it was easier if he could move around as an individual, especially since this would allow him to train more efficiently. Letting it purely become a form of enjoyment would be a waste. After finishing his breakfast, Wang Zheng left for the school's service system. He had matched up the school's curriculum with the associated material while the Skylink was receiving messages. Some of these books Wang Zheng had already read several years back. Directly opposite of the physics department building was the mecha department building. the students from the mecha department were engaged in excited conversation. Despite the majority of them being males, the number of students who wanted to be mecha pilots was innumerable. Regardless if it was a childhood dream to become a hero or if one was duped into doing so, it was difficult to resist the allure of becoming a mech pilot. Wang Jung was one that was duped into becoming a mech pilot. Looking at how excited the others were, he himself almost drooled. The Skylink began to ring. It was a call from Xiao Fei asking Wang Jung to come over. Today was only the second day and classes would only officially begin tomorrow. Just as he prepared to leave, there was a shout from the crowd. An extremely handsome youth wearing the mecha department's uniform walked out. This was the first time Wang Jung had met someone who could compare with that chap, Xie Yuxin. In fact, this guy seemed even more perfect. It was hard to find any faults. Could this be the legendary Mr. Perfect? Is that Masashi from the moon? Yes, it should be him. The principal personally invited him. He's the cream of the crop. King hell, what is he doing on Earth? He should have just stayed on the moon. Then the moon could have the highest standards in the solar system. Only a ghost would know what he's thinking. Perhaps he's unable to continue living on the moon and was forced here. That scumbag has already been voted to be the most handsome guy of our generation. Tisk, it should be said that that guy is really not that bad. Masashi had a wry smile on his face and was totally relaxed. It seemed as though he had not heard any of the words the surrounding individuals were saying about him. This was one aspect of him that was better than Xie Yuxin. Xiao Yu, that chap, would only be relaxed when he was with Wang Jung and Yan Xiaoshu. The crowd clamored noisily once again. This time, on the opposite end, an individual with a head of flaming red hair approached. He was chewing a piece of gum and arrogance and obstinateness was written all over his face. His hair was actually not dyed but rather it was the defining feature of a Martian. Carl was quite tall and he exuded a heroic spirit. However, his thick lips caused his sharp temperament to become even more overbearing, so much so that it would repel anyone within a 1,000-mile radius. Masashi, as I previously said, we will meet again, Carl said provokingly. Masashi merely gave him a warm smile. Who would have thought that I would meet you here? Haha. Did you actually think that Ji Yute, that old bastard, had the skill to convince me? I rushed here just to meet you. However, I would really like to know why you gave up the opportunity to study at Atlanta and came here instead. Carl licked his lips. He was clearly extremely interested in him, and this time there was no need to be worried. In this school, there would be many chances to spar and it would be impossible to hide. These two were both well-known individuals in the solar system in middle school and were naturally well acquainted. Masashi smiled wryly. Principal Ji Yute was very sincere. Bull's tea. Other than there being beautiful young maidens, there's nothing great about this place. Like those historical sites, even if they were leveled, it wouldn't make a difference. In the solar system's middle school student ranking, Masashi had consistently suppressed Carl. He would never believe that this proud and arrogant individual would be swayed by someone's sincerity to come to this god-forsaken place. Masashi continued to smile and did not pay any attention to Carl as he said, Earth has Earth's unique points. The new school term has started. Let us mutually improve on our weaknesses. At this point in time, the Skylink had finished its download. Carl wrenched open Masashi's hand. The moment I beat you in a battle will be the moment I leave this damned place. He held no regard for the fury that the people surrounding them had towards him. He was full of unadorned hatred, yet he had failed to realize that this was Earth and not Mars. The signature wildness and ferocity of the Martians could clearly be seen emanating from Carl's body. Young one, you must be Carl. Don't be so ferocious. Ares College is Earth's #1 academy. In the entire solar system, there are countless academies. If not for the fact that you're a freshman, I would have knocked you down long ago. A third-year mecha department student who had been previously restraining himself stood up with unbridled aggression. Carl's face turned into a sneer. Are Earthlings only good at talking? Should I say that the Earth's soldiers are only adept at talking? FKU. The mecha department's student prefect could no longer restrain himself. He threw a punch at Carl which landed squarely on the side of his face. Carl rubbed his cheek. Brother, you have yet to finish drinking your mother's breast milk. A kick smashed across and with a bang, The student who was kicked flew across the field, landed 5 meters away, and crumpled in a heap on the floor. Too weak. This place is just full of weaklings. Masashi, what do you think you can learn from here? They were in the main courtyard of Ares College, and this was a provocation to every individual here. A group of people moved to surround Carl. What, do you want to gang up on me? Rubbish like you. No matter how many come at me, it won't make a difference. In a brief moment, 5 or 6 individuals had been knocked down. They were definitely not heavyweights. That Carl was like a ball of unbridled wrath. It was said that the Martian military academies fostered a barbaric culture and style as their foundation. Was it really necessary to use it at a military school? Masashi did not lift a finger but merely watched silently from the side. A trace of disappointment could be seen in his eyes. He knew that the Earth's standards had deteriorated significantly in these last few years, but even he did not expect that the standards had fallen to such an extent. The students here were too comfortable, they did not seek to improve themselves. Bang! Carl's hand was blocked by someone. Xie Yushin had stopped him and then hit him with an icy glare. Carl, we are not on Mars, don't push it. Haha. Who might this be? Is this not Xie Yushin? I thought that you had gone to the Aslan Empire. Excellent, things are getting interesting. Today, for your sake, I will not push the matter. Carl shot back. Then he separated from Xie Yushin and adjusted his uniform. Within the year, I will beat the two of you and then leave this S*T hole. The Aslan Empire possessed the best military academies in the Milky Way galaxy and represented the highest of standards. For individuals like Carl, Masashi, and Xie Yushin, they all possessed the ability to enter those schools. However, the Aslan Empire's military academies were not only difficult to enter, but it was difficult to retain a spot. In these few years, the number of students from the solar system that were expelled were more than a few. They were the best of the solar system, but when they returned, they were completely devoid of spirit. They refused to speak of the experiences there. Carl also wanted to go there, but at the very least he had to beat all of his rivals in the solar system before he had the confidence to be there. Xie Yushin did not bother with Carl. That person had a domineering and haughty personality. When he turned around and saw Wang Zheng, he was extremely happy. At this point in time, Carl suddenly lashed out with a kick towards Xie Yushin. The crowd roared in displeasure. Who would have expected someone as famous as Carl to launch a sneak attack? Xie Yushin did not expect it either, so he retreated on instinct. However, as the second kick approached him, Xie Yushin managed to block it, but his body lost balance and he flew backwards. Carl did not relent and followed behind with 2 large steps. Then he launched a vicious shoulder tackle at Xie Yushin. Fighting on Mars was commonplace. There could never be too much deception in war. This was Mars tradition. A shadow appeared on the court and grabbed Xie Yushin while simultaneously receiving Carl's ferocious shoulder tackle. Fellow classmates, we might all be angry, but we will have plenty of opportunities to exchange pointers in future, Wang Zheng said as his left hand grasped Carl's right shoulder tightly. Carl tried to exert strength, but he realized that his opponent did not budge even a single inch. By twisting his right shoulder, he managed to escape from his opponent's grip. He looked at Wang Zheng with interest as he sized him up. Physics department, huh? Xie Yushin grabbed Wang Zheng. Let's go. This guy is no more than a rabid dog. Xie Yushin was not easily provoked and thus he was suited to join the officers department. Actually, I think that this place has become quite interesting, said Wang Zheng as they walked off. He did not pay much heed to the sneak attack. Furthermore, prior to that, Carl was ganged up on by several individuals. Even if their strength was insufficient, one could not use that as an excuse. Carl is this generation's most well-known individual from Mars. The fact that he and Masashi chose to come to Ares College was quite strange. In fact, Grandpa called on many people to join us, but in the end only those 2 chose to accept. To be frank, Grandpa did not expect anyone to accept, said Xie Yushin. Wrestling was not his strong suit, and even if he did fight, he was not Carl's match. Furthermore, he could not afford to offend him, because despite Ares College being excellent on Earth, compared to the rest of the academies in the Milky Way galaxy, its standards had dropped and were still dropping. Being able to attract Carl and Masashi was a mystery and he did not want to fight earnestly. If he had lost, the situation would not have concluded there. If I can beat that chap, does that mean I can enter the mecha department? Asked Wang Jung as his eyes glittered with a golden light. Well, if you can perform exceptionally during military training, I can raise this situation to my grandpa. However, that guy only used 50% of his power just now. People from Mars are just freaks. Xie Yuxin nodded. That Masashi has pretty good looks, he can compete with you. Wang Jung laughed. Xie Yuxin did not know whether to laugh or to cry. That Masashi can actually enter Aslan's best military school without having to take the entrance examination. It's strange that he would be willing to come here. I was the first to get the news and even I wondered if I had misheard. Is that pretty boy that strong? Wang Jung asked curiously. Xie Yuxin looked at Wang Jung. Others can't tell that you're so skilled either. Damn, where do you think all my daily training has gone? It's all muscles under here, Wang Jung joked. The whole school found out about this disturbance very quickly. Those two special students from abroad were not easy to deal with, especially that Carl, he even beat up the seniors. This showing demonstrated Carl's heavy-handedness. People from Mars had always respected the strong, but as for the weak, their days would be miserable. Ji Yute was definitely the first to hear about the incident. The school management's views were definitely not going to be consistent with his. Principal, this Carl despises Ares College and has beaten his seniors. He should be punished before all hell breaks loose. I think so too. This type of student will not know his limits if we don't punish him. Give him a punishment no matter what. The teachers were passionate. On the other hand, Xiao Fei was playing a space block game. It could train one's spatial awareness. I say you people are too free, making a big fuss over nothing, Xiao Fei said as she played. The whole conference room quieted down in a moment. Oh, Professor Xiao Fei, what are your thoughts? Ji Yute asked while smiling. Ares College is very lousy now, so he is not wrong. A group of people fighting against one. To think they have the cheek to complain after losing. We might just as well expel these kind of students. How shameful. No wonder Earth's military rankings are getting lower and lower. Xiao Fei's unceremonious words threw everyone into disarray, including the principal, but the principal was still smiling. Professor Xiao Fei, you are also a member of Ares College, so you can't put it this way. As a student of the college, he should, the director of teaching, Zhang Liang, said slowly. Xiao Fei waved her hand and immediately interrupted. I say, Director Zhang, can you stop dreaming? Do you think he cares? In order for a school to be respected by the students, the school must have its respectable points. Don't bring up the past, he was not even born yet. Zhang Liang was beyond mad after being insulted by a teacher who was much younger. Unfortunately, she was the college's trump card. Oh, calm down, both of you. I feel that Professor Xiao Fei makes sense. We can't immerse ourselves in the past anymore. There's no point in deceiving ourselves. I visited more than 10 military schools this time and saw that everyone's undergoing revamps. We have already fallen behind, and we need to catch up. Starting from this round of military training, we will use the actual military strengthening program. Students of Ares College need to be the pillars of the military in the future. Higher demands should be expected of them. Ji Yute borrowed Xiao Fei's words to settle the situation directly. They had to be stricter. He did not think that Earth's students were naturally inferior. What they lacked was a certain spirit. This spirit needed to be evoked by the school. Carl's actions were not right, but big problems required draconian measures. Ares College really needed a person like Carl to stimulate the students' passion. Ah, you guys carry on. I almost forgot that I have things to do. Drink your tea and continue chatting. Xiao Fei quickly left, leaving a group of teachers just staring at each other. The school's inner circle had its progressive and conservative factions. Everyone knew that innovation always required the use of tradition and incentives, and Ji Yute was well aware that this would not be easy. But if this was not done, Ares College's reputation would be gone. Apart from mankind originating from Earth, what else did their planet have? He would use Masashi's and Carl's high standards to awaken the students. He believed that since Earth was the origin of mankind, it definitely was irreplaceable. This was the faith he had held on to all along. Student Wang arrived at Xiao Fei's temple. It was known as a temple because the physics department laboratory was indeed the school's most beautiful and expensive place. The laboratory doors were closed. Student Wang Zheng waited helplessly for half an hour before Xiao Fei arrived. Late, but still at her own pace. Upon seeing Wang Zheng, Xiao Fei's mood became better. She eyed Wang Zheng from head to toe, causing Wang Zheng to feel a little creeped out. "Professor, how can I help?" "Come, let me first familiarize you with the surroundings. You will be my assistant in the future, so you will need to know your own workplace." Xiao Fei said extremely proudly. It has to be said that at many times, Xiao Fei's mind was still like that of a child. She was not that old anyway. Although Wang Zheng was mentally prepared, he was still awestruck by the spectacular laboratory. "This is a particle trap. Whatever you want, you can have it. For that matter, there is only one in the whole world," Xiao Fei said extremely proudly. "With me, things will always be exciting." Wang Zheng wiped his sweat. Why did it feel like the professor was trying to entice a little kid? "Professor, I am only a freshman. These things are too advanced for me. I don't understand at all." "Rest assured, I will teach you. With your talent, you will pick these things up very easily. Physics is mankind's greatest science. You will fall in love with it." Xiao Fei's eyes shone brightly. This was a genius immersed in the world of physics. However, student Wang already wanted to get out. But at the current stage, he still had to continue. "Professor, my dormitory mate, Zhang Shan, is very talented. Can you let him be your assistant?" Wang Zheng asked. Given Zhang Shan's caliber, he should be able to. "Ah, that kid. He's pretty decent, but you are slightly better." Gazing at Xiao Fei's heated eyes, Wang Zheng felt a little dizzy. He would be fine if she was a little older, but she was not older than him by much. He was dragged along by Xiao Fei for a while before he was finally let go. It was apparent that it was rare for Xiao Fei to find someone with common topics to discuss with. In the world of science, loneliness was guaranteed. Teaching others was one thing, but to find a partner on the same intellectual level was purely by chance. It was not something that could be sought. Xiao Fei also never would have expected that a middle schooler would have such comprehension skills. A unique train of thought and a rather decent broad perspective of physics, these were the qualities that showed potential for becoming a good physicist. It was no wonder Xiao Fei was so impassioned when trying to recruit Wang Zheng. The second day of school passed by in a flurry, following which military training officially began. Military training was split into two groups. One was for those in the military department and the other was for those of the non-military departments. The former was a lot harder, but students could have their pick. Wang Zheng chose the former without hesitation. What was more surprising was that he was not the only one. Zhang Shan also chose the former. The students were led to different suburban areas in the Beijing military area. Previous batches of students had drill instructors who were invited to the school to guide them. However, this time the situation was different. The students were moved to a new area for training and no one had seemed to notice. They treated it like an excursion with new friends. Changing into outdoor combat attire, everyone's personal belongings were kept away until the end of the basic training. The dormitory was bare and simple. One house had 100 people in it, and it felt like it was converted from a warehouse. Many complained bitterly, and the whining was endless. Wang Zheng and Zhang Shan, however, calmly found their places and exchanged looks. "Didn't expect that you would choose mecha department training. I've said it before, I want to be in the mecha department, you?" A brilliant mind needs to be matched with a perfect and strong body to be perfect. Besides, the mecha department's standards are not that remarkable, Zhang Shan said proudly. His build and strength truly gave him the right to be so prideful. The two did not say much. Work and rest times were very precise. They slept once it was time to sleep. Others still complained and chatted as if it was a tea party. Some connected their Skylinks and played games. Zhang Shan thought that his willpower was strong, but the noise prevented him from sleeping. However, after glancing over, he realized that Wang Zheng had already entered sleep peacefully. This was a minor thing to student Wang. When one was tired, even sleeping while standing was enjoyable. Besides, this was only considered to be a little noisy. And in another place, Chen Shu and Yao Ailun were already complaining non-stop. As pure intellectuals, they were not used to such conditions. I have no idea what Wang Zheng and Zhang Shan are thinking. They're intellectuals, but they chose to mix with the brawny ones, Yao Ailun said. Brother Ailun, actually, Zhang Shan's limbs are very developed, Chen Shu said. In this place, the physics department and math department students were in completely different states, minding their own businesses. Even if they chatted, it was soft and everyone had their own spaces. Regardless, the college's military training had begun. At 1 in the morning, a piercing bell rang and the door was kicked open. Everyone gazed blankly at the soldier at the door. I am your training instructor, Luo Yun. I'll give you all 5 minutes to assemble at the drill grounds. FK, are you kidding me? What time is it now? I still have not slept enough. Is this military training or abuse? I will sue you. Luo Yun smiled. Anyone who does not meeting military training's requirements will face immediate expulsion. It has been stated all along on your admission notification before. You all only have 4 minutes and 20 seconds left. After finishing, Luo Yun turned and left. The whole house seemed to have a little more clarity in their heads at this point. Actually, when Luo Yun finished speaking, Wang Zheng had already finished getting ready. Zhang Shan's speed was also very fast. It was as if they had foreseen a scenario like this. The two went out first. Seems like Ji Yute is for real this time, Zhang Shan laughed. At the drill grounds, they were not the earliest. Masashi, Carl, and Xie Yuxin had already arrived. After Wang Zheng and Zhang Shan joined the ranks, students streamed in continuously. The mecha department and command department all had a certain amount of mental preparation for this. Despite what they said about things they would do, they still did not dare to act carelessly. There were 10 or so soldiers recording the latecomers' names. It took about 10 minutes for everyone to be present. All latecomers, turn around and run 10,000 meters. Immediately, there were unwilling people. Luo Yun said coldly, all those who have any doubts, you may drop out immediately. No one is forced to stay. This is the military. Everything done is in accordance with military regulations. A trace of a smile appeared at the corner of Carl's mouth. The show was just beginning. Luo Yun sighed. Just by observing Masashi and Carl, one could see the standards from which they came from. They were on a whole different level. For today, your training will be to stand at attention until the sun rises. Suddenly, 6 spotlights turned on, their bright lights dazzling everyone. This was the beginning of the first day of military training. Speaking from the perspective of the military college students, this was the start of a hellish journey. 5 hours later, there were only 7 individuals who could maintain the appropriate posture without moving. They were none other than Wang Zheng, Masashi, Carl, Xie Yuxin, Zhang Shan, Yi Zisu, and Meng Tian. Disappointment could be seen in Luo Yun and his fellow colleagues' eyes. This standard was just too low. This sort of trial could not be considered significant, and yet there were only a few individuals left. Furthermore, for those who were made to run 10 kilometers, one after another collapsed. In fact, it was considered decent if those individuals could accomplish the task by walking. Yi Zisu looked at Meng Tian, and Meng Tian returned the glance. They were the 2 most welcomed female students. Meng Tian was from the officers' department, and her whole family was part of the military. She was 180 centimeters tall with a perfect figure. She did not expect that Yi Zisu could continue to persevere. The 7 of you aren't bad. Today's training officially begins now. I will be in charge of you 7. Now, go and run 10 kilometers as fast as you can, said Luo Yun. The other 3 instructors were in charge of the rest of the students. When the rest of the students heard him, they were delighted. Sometimes, the greatest happiness came from another's misfortune. These 7 individuals were too dazzling, and that led the rest of the students to feel quite smug. After standing, they still had to run 10 kilometers. Luo Yun started the timer, and with a bang, the 7 individuals rushed forward. Surprisingly, the fastest was Meng Tian. There was no need to ask why. Meng Tian possessed A-grade genetics. As such, she did not feel much strain in running. Carl gave a smirk. Masashi, there's no point in taking this leisurely. Let's race. Up to you, replied Masashi calmly. Such was his personality. As they were speaking, a shadow lanced across, overtaking them. Zhang Shan stared blankly at the guy in front of him. F***ck. How could this guy be so fast? Wang Jung had no choice but to be the fastest. He had to be exceptional in his military training if he wanted to enter the mecha department. His reason to excel was completely different from the rest of these people. Carl naturally did not forget about Wang Jung. He immediately rushed to catch up. However, 10 kilometers was neither particularly short nor particularly long, so rushing from the start was unsustainable. Carl roared and he rushed towards Wang Jung to catch up. Masashi, with the same wry smile on his face, looked nonchalant, but he too clearly increased his pace. Only Xie Yuxin had a bitter smile on his face. Wang Jung was on dangerous ground here. 10 minutes later, everyone on the field was shocked. Wang Jung's speed did not show any indication of slowing. Luo Yun stared at the timer. What in the world? What kind of speed was this? Although Wang Jung had completed almost half of the 10 kilometers, his speed had not decreased. Right behind Wang Jung could be seen two individuals, Masashi and Carl, who were fervently chasing after him. Although the distance between them was only several tens of meters, Carl cursed and swore. Even if he used his ass to think, it didn't make any sense. How could this bastard be running so fast? The distance between the lead group and the rest had increased significantly. Speed was never Zhang Shan's forte, thus Meng Tian was in fourth place with Xie Yuxin, Yi Zisu, and Zhang Shan right behind in that order. Many people were surprised at Yi Zisu's speed, but not Wang Jung. He knew that she was one that often trained her body. However, that bastard Wang Jung was just too fast. Soon, the entire field was watching them speechlessly, whether it was those who were standing, lying down, or segregated from the rest of the students. Everyone could feel in their hearts how this training exercise had become an intense competition. After half the distance had been completed, the body would usually be overcome with fatigue. The more one rushed at the beginning, the stronger the effects of fatigue. This was not something that could be overcome with mere willpower. This was a physical constraint. Carl laughed mysteriously, following which he rushed forward explosively, unexpectedly increasing his running pace. There were no weaklings on Mars. He rushed towards Wang Jung with larger and larger strides. Although he was panting heavily, Masashi also increased his pace silently. Seeing Carl sprinting was like watching a tank. He was absolutely ferocious. However, Masashi was different. He had a certain grace to his running as he caught up to Wang Jung. At this point in time, Wang Jung had also unexpectedly increased his pace to almost inhuman levels. Originally, he had only wanted to be first. Yet who would have thought that those two fellows would chase after him so viciously? If he wanted special treatment, he needed to have the results to show it. Otherwise, it would also cause problems for the principal. Hence, if this was the case, he just had to run a little bit faster. Bam! Smoke and dust was kicked up from the floor. Wang Jung's blood started to pump faster, and his feet looked as though he was flying. What fatigue! In a breath's time he had once again increased the distance between him and the two who had almost caught up. 16 minutes later, Wang Jung had finished the 10-kilometer run. The entire field was silent. Was this guy a human? What kind of speed and persistence did he have? Luo Yun couldn't believe his eyes. However, he would not lose his composure in front of a group of rookies. FK, this was a new record in the entire capital's military academies. Reporting to instructor. I have completed the assigned task, said Wang Jung respectfully. Luo Yun nodded his head in satisfaction. This bastard not only had ability, his attitude was excellent, especially the feeling he exuded. He felt like a true soldier, a soldier that had undergone training for a long time. Wang Jung had been trained by Bonehead. Thus, he had cultivated many habits from that period of time and did not feel that he was different from anyone else. Masashi was the second to finish, with a time of 17 minutes. Carl was third with a time of about 18 minutes. Closely following behind were Meng Tian and Xie Yuxin. At the last moment, Zhang Shan had pushed forward with all the strength his breastfeeding self could muster and arrived at the end together with Yi Zisu. He was a guy, so if he was last, even if it came to running, it would have been embarrassing. Even if he was last to arrive, his results would still be considering breathtaking. At least if he were to be compared with the rest of these rookies, this result would definitely be acceptable. Luo Yun looked at the time and shouted, "Gather!" After such a trial, The students were naturally very obedient and thus gathered quickly. Although their formation was not neat, their attitude had vastly improved. From today on, military training will be segregated into 3 categories: high, medium, and low levels. The total score will also take into account your age. Those who do not meet the standards will be expelled. Ares College is training future generations of war gods, not cowards. Hence, you better give me your 120% from now on. Following which, these 3 instructors, Sergeant Zhao Teng, Sergeant NC, and Sergeant YNC, will drill you in troop formations. Begin. Following which, Luo Yun looked at the 7 individuals and said, "You guys, follow me." Luo Yun could feel this group's hearts palpitate intensely, yet they could still control themselves. Wait, why were there 2 individuals who were unaffected? Luo Yun turned around. Wang Zheng and Masa Si, these 2 individuals were completely unaffected. How could this be? The 7 of you have shown remarkable perseverance. Next we will test your explosive strength. Who will be first? Luo Yun was slightly curious. Of course Ji Yute wanted to see how the students fared in every aspect. Apart from Masasi and Carl, the rest were not as weak as he had expected. I will go first. Zhang Shan had been looking for an opportunity to showcase his talents. This was too humiliating. He was a slow runner, but physical strength was his strong point. Yi Zisu looked at Meng Tian, but Meng Tian kept staring in Wang Zheng's direction. She had never heard of him. Where in the world did he appear from? Instructor, must I use a fist or will anything do? Zhang Shan asked as he removed his shirt, showcasing a body full of toned muscles. It doesn't matter, I just want to see your strongest explosive strength. Luo Yun waved his hand. Zhang Shan moved back several steps. Suddenly, his footsteps sped up as he rushed towards the target, and with a ferocious roar, he executed a roundhouse kick at the strength testing machine. Bang! 416 pounds. This amount of strength could have allowed him to be a wrestling champion a time long ago. Zhang Shan retracted his foot slowly, his mouth drawn in a grimace. Although he was not in his peak condition, this should be enough to dispatch his opponents. Luo Yun nodded his head. This Zhang Shan was an exercise nut. Next, Xie Yuxin could only produce 280 pounds of force, still lacking by a considerable amount when compared with Zhang Shan. However, such a result was not bad, as he was not an individual that focused on training his physical strength. Carl gave Masasi a glance. Let me give it a shot. At the strength testing machine, Carl took a deep breath, then his body lunged forward like a leaping tiger. His fist looked as though it emitted a red light and he struck directly at the strength testing machine. Ring, 528 pounds. Ding ding ding. Luo Yun was shocked. Someone this strong was rarely seen even amongst regular soldiers. No wonder Ji Yute had specially tried to recruit him. Sometimes one couldn't be unconvinced. In the solar system, there were occasional competitions between military corps, and Mars and the Moon were always at the top. Earth's soldiers could only ever be a sideshow. This could be attributed to Mars and the Moon's special environments. Sometimes, people could only sigh in secret. Could it be that those left on Earth could only reminisce over the past? Comparing strength, you guys cannot compete with me. Regardless of where he was, Carl was always arrogant. Next, although he sighed in his heart, his face did not betray any form of emotion. After all, Luo Yun was still a soldier of Earth. Ladies first. Masasi smiled faintly with an inviting gesture. Yi Zisu's explosive strength was 130 pounds. Haha, you're still a girl. Why don't you be a secretary instead? War is a man's game. Carl laughed. Mars was extremely patriarchal. Meng Tian moved up and silently stood in front of the strength testing machine, coldly staring at Carl. Carl looked extremely interested at how Meng Tian would perform. Bang! 490 pounds. Although she could not match Carl, Meng Tian was still a female. Furthermore, she did not look like a dinosaur rippling with muscles. At this point, Carl was extremely surprised. Wang Zheng looked surprised as well. Meng Tian's fist had been extremely profound. Although it looked like a single strike, it was actually 3 simultaneous strikes impacting at high speed. Luo Yun did not look surprised. It was Meng Tian after all. What was most breathtaking was the fact that Meng Tian still looked extremely calm and collected. Carl had stopped with his sarcastic comments, and he now saw Meng Tian in a new light. She was also another competitor to be subdued. Luo Yun recorded the result and nodded his head. Next, Masashi gave Wang Zheng a glance, but Wang Zheng gestured for him to go ahead first. Masashi then moved in front of the machine and like Zhang Shan did and took several steps back before exerting his full force. He was not quick and violent like Zhang Shan but rather fast like lightning. Bang! 535 pounds. He looked as though he had executed it with ease. Carl couldn't help but mutter under his breath. The previous summer vacation he had spared no effort in training bitterly. Yet he was still weaker than that bastard. He always lost to him by a slim margin. It was infuriating. Masashi gave a smile as though he did not care. It could be seen that he had not exerted his full strength. Wang Zheng, just give it your best shot. Don't hurt yourself. The recoil from this plaything is quite large, said Xie Yuxin. He knew why Wang Zheng had put in so much effort. His grandpa had promised that if Wang Zheng displayed exceptional results in military training, this would be one reason he could use to convince the mecha department's teachers. If not, things would be more difficult. Wang Zheng paused as he briefly touched the strength testing machine. Carl looked impatient. Hurry up, don't dawdle. Carl, if you're looking for trouble, I'm happy to keep you company. Zhang Shan frowned as he spoke. This bastard was asking for a beating. He looked like someone who deserved a beating from head to toe. Just you wouldn't be enough, Carl's mouth twitched. Luo Yun gave a slight smile. Don't be anxious. Within this month, there will definitely be an opportunity for you to vent your frustrations. Wang Zheng paused for a moment. Even he did not know how strong he was. However, in order to beat Masashi, he had to use what he was good at. Wang Zheng, be careful, Yi Zisu said. She did not feel that injuring oneself to triumph once was particularly heroic behavior. Wang Zheng nodded his head and took a step back. His eyes flickered with energy. Bang! F***ck. When he released his fist, Wang Zheng knew that a problem was going to arise. Crack, ding, bang. Some workers by the door heard the explosion and rushed in. Everyone in the strength testing room could only stare agape at the sight. The strength testing machine had been completely destroyed. The audience looked at Wang Zheng silently. Wang Zheng was also speechless. Deep down, he scolded himself. You really are an idiot, Wang Zheng. I hope I don't have to pay any compensation for this. Luo Yun was shocked but he controlled himself, giving a slight cough. I think the strength testing machine has had some issues. Swap it for a new one. Seeing that Luo Yun had not raised any notions of asking for compensation, Wang Zheng let out a huge sigh of relief. The Earth core were still quite reliable. After a new machine was swapped in, Wang Zheng controlled his strength tightly. Surprisingly, he was still able to output 580 pounds of force in a single strike. At this point, everyone else was utterly flabbergasted. Yi Zisu looked furious as she walked over and beat Wang Zheng's shoulders fervently. Wow, you bastard, you've hidden a lot of things about yourself, she said, before shooting a quick glance at Meng Tian. Xie Yuxin gave Wang Zheng a thumbs up. Looked like he was wrong. Wang Zheng's true potential might actually not be in the field of physics. Carl was speechless, while Masashi looked at Wang Zheng in great interest. Arrogance required some form of backing. They had originally felt that no one on Earth could compete with them. Yet Wang Zheng was still very innocent. He only had one thing on his mind. His largest worry was that Luo Yun would suddenly turn around and tell him, Wang Zheng, this strength testing machine's compensation will be on you. Thankfully, Luo Yun immediately moved on to the next part of the test. The testing facility was extraordinary. It could be seen that the machine for testing was significantly more complex than the last one. Masashi stopped and then said, Instructor, there's no need to test me, I possess ability X. Luo Yun nodded his head. Do the rest of you want to try the test? Carl looked distracted, then he shrugged his shoulders and replied, I don't, no need to test for it. The two girls also shook their heads, while Zhang Shan waved his arms. I don't have it either. I do, said Xie Yuxin. Everyone had a look of surprise on their faces, especially Carl. How could he expect that someone on Earth would have this? What is ability X? Wang Zheng asked curiously. If your genes are of grade A, which is to say, above 90 points, there will be a special test that scans your brain region. Some people possess extraordinary abilities, commonly known as extrasensory perception, explained Yi Zisu. She then remembered Wang Zheng's gene score. Wang Zheng gave a bitter smile. I don't have it, I have no need to test. Could you all write this down? Luo Yun asked. My apologies, instructor, but this is a secret, Masasi declined. Luo Yun did not continue to push the issue. Those who had ability X were the elites among the elites. Thus, it could be said that whichever department had him would definitely place him in a critical role. Ability X did not assure that one's brainwaves would react with greater activity, so perhaps there was no practical application. However, in the younger generation, this was all part of one's identity. It showed that they had even greater talent. Furthermore, for Ability X users, they would all become extraordinary individuals. Due to this fact, Carl could no longer afford to look down on Xie Yuxin. The probability to possess Ability X was extremely low. In fact, even among elites, out of every 10,000, there would only be one individual with it. The 7 of you have had a decent performance. In the future, there will be more exceptional students that will be joining us. You can all go back now. Future training will be tougher than this, so you better be mentally prepared, said Major Luo Yun. He still wanted to assess the training situation of the rest of the students. In the past, training was not as complicated. However, this time, Ji Yute mobilized a significant amount of resources to teach the students. This was to obtain an understanding of their standards. With Ji Yute's influence, the military would naturally cooperate. Furthermore, the military urgently required capable fresh blood to join them. People like Masasi and Carl would definitely not stay on Earth. However, their presence could serve to motivate the rest of the students, and this couldn't be better. To the new students of Ares College, this would definitely be a period that would be hard to forget. This was regardless if they were part of the military departments or not. As a result, this also included Wang Zheng and his friends. After the first day, where they were taught a lesson, the entire first week was spent on grueling and strict basic training. Military appearance, drills, marching, running, rolling around. Without needing any further words, it could be said that it was extremely tiring and depressing. Being oppressed day and night, everyone's spirit had had a qualitative change. Furthermore, those who could enter Ares College all possessed similar basic abilities. No one wanted to be weaker than someone else, and thus, the atmosphere gradually improved. After the first week, the most outstanding individuals were none other than Wang Zheng, Masasi, Carl, Zhang Shan, Meng Tian, and Yi Zisu. The two beauties were in the limelight. They were the two goddesses of this hellish training, whom could reduce the pain of everyone. Meng Tian was 1.8 meters tall. When wearing her military uniform, one could feel incomparable valiance and formidableness from her. However, to those in the mecha and officer departments, the one person who had managed to kindle their motivation was none other than Carl, who had continually humiliated them. Yi Zisu was from the capital, and she was originally Dawn's school flower, OMG's little princess. She looked delicate but had performed exceptionally. Thus, many people saw her with a whole new level of respect. When beauty, wealth, and fitness combined together, it would result in one who was envied by everyone as Ms. Perfect, fair-skinned, rich, and beautiful. The one in most pain would be Yan Xiaoshu. The difference between this hellish training that skinned him alive and the days where he would only need to rely on his street smarts were so drastic that he had long wished to quit school. However, the thought of how scary his father would be led him to persevere. If he really did quit school, his father would definitely cut off all of his allowance regardless of what he said. Wang Zheng and Zhang Shan had another sort of fame. The two were physics department students, yet they were famous in the military departments. They had caused a large number of mecha and officer department students to feel pressured. Most importantly, the instructors often used their names to provoke the students. With regards to the instructor's method in sowing hatred to motivate them, Zhang Shan was naturally quite ambivalent. He was a physics department student after all, so he was unconcerned with these students. Yet for poor student Wang, it was a headache. He would have to join the mecha department in future, and yet before he even joined, he had offended everyone there. Wang Zheng enjoyed the training immensely. This intense training could help him to sharpen his body, and his cultivation had also improved. Even the Rubik's Cube's battle energy had increased. Of course, strange situations also occurred. Meng Tian would occasionally glare at him icily, but when did poor student Wang ever offend her? Wang Zheng had not touched CT for a week, so he felt a sense of longing. Unfortunately, the only source of leisure here was training. The rules were controlled strictly, but if one wanted to play games on their Skylink, that was fine. However, they had to be careful not to be caught, as the penalty would be a negative evaluation. The second week of training had finally improved. The students were finally rid of the boring and simple exercises. Now they could enjoy the beautiful mountain scenery. Yet this was not an excursion. Everyone had to carry a heavy pack filled to the brim with bricks. Mecha pilot training was not only tough but boring. When one training ended, another began. Mecha pilots were still soldiers after all. Furthermore, not every pilot could become a mech pilot. Most became engineers, tank operators, plane pilots, or even infantry. Physical strength was the most important aspect regardless of whatever one would do. Soon, everyone understood how they were extremely fortunate to just spend their time running around the track. They had to climb over mountains and ridges while carrying bricks. They really wanted to take those bricks and fling them at the instructor's brains. After the first day, no one else had any other thoughts on their minds. They ate as if their lives depended on it and slept as though their lives depended on it. This was because they would be awoken randomly during the middle of the night. After 1 week of this torture, even Masashi and Carl, who were usually calm and collected, were slightly perturbed. Fatigue could be seen on Carl's face. This training was too intense. His original haughtiness had also disappeared, but this was not due to the training but rather, Wang Zheng. Carl strongly suspected that the little bastard was a human skin-wearing robot. How could there be no discernible signs of fatigue on him? Student Wang ate well and slept peacefully. Concurrently, he also had to serve as a psychological counselor, listening to Yan Xiaoshu complain. Actually, the intensity of the training had already been reduced, but Xiaoshu needed to vent his emotions somewhere. 1 week's wilderness training had led to the condition of the female student's skin being affected significantly, yet there were also exceptions. For example, no one knew what sort of skin product Yi Zisu was using, but her skin became more and more sparkly. This had led her to become even more popular among the girls, with more and more asking how this was possible. On the third week, it was a blessing as far as anyone was concerned. Although basic training still continued, the quantity had reduced significantly. The key thing was to understand their firearms better. This was everyone's happiest moment. Wang Zheng's elite class had increased to a size of 50 individuals. They were those who had displayed exceptional ability and willpower in the most recent training exercise. The firearms class was about to begin officially, so military training had thus become simpler. In the monitoring lab, Ji Yute had arrived. "General, the students of this batch are generally not bad," Luo Yun saluted. "It must have been tough. I have received your report. Your analysis has been extremely accurate," Ji Yute nodded his head. "The principal taught me well," replied Luo Yun as he smiled. He too was a student of Ares College, a member of the Army's Innovation Faction. In order to revive Ares College's glory, relying on Masashi and Carl's abilities had no value. Everyone was clear that they were only two individuals and that the school would not regain its glory because of them. Ji Yute was extremely clear on that point. He had gotten these two to join in order to motivate and incite the rest of the students. Looking at the sight before him, the results were not bad, especially Carl's provocative personality. It had spurred many students on to improve. "Principal, this Wang Zheng is an extremely important matter. I have been in the military for almost 10 years, and I have never met such a prodigy. It is like he was born to be a soldier, yet he is actually part of the physics department," said Luo Yun, with regret. This guy's situation is quite extraordinary." When Ji Yute received the test results, he thought that there had been a mistake. Wang Zheng's results were better than that of Masashi's. Even if Masashi was not trying his best, these results were still surprising. He had originally thought that this chap introduced by Xie Yuxin would be nothing but trouble. Who would have expected he would have unearthed a gem? However, if he were to transfer him out of the physics department, Xiao Fei would definitely object violently. That woman would definitely blow up his office. On the field, regardless of gender, everyone was extremely interested in the shooting practice. Shooting sounds blanketed the area. When it came to this particular field of expertise, Xie Yuxin displayed his absolute skill. None were comparable to him. In fact, he was better than Carl by quite a bit. Masasi's usual expression was unchanged. It was as though he had no weaknesses. Wang Zheng's performance wasn't bad. It could be seen that he was quite interested in shooting. Military training was just to let people get into the thick of things. Future training would gradually decrease in intensity. Furthermore, everyone was just a student and had to settle back into the rhythm of school life. With regards to shooting skills, the instructors were not particularly strict. The important thing was to cultivate interest in this aspect. On the contrary, Masasi walked over to Wang Zheng's side and asked him, "Would you like to engage in a small competition?" This was the first time Masasi had taken the initiative to invite someone to a competition ever since he arrived on Earth. Even Carl, who was standing at the side, was shocked. Masasi's actions showed that he was held in no regard. Sadly, shooting was not one of Carl's strengths. "Wang Zheng, accept his challenge, we support you." "Yeah, there's nothing to be afraid of, you've always been number one. Ruin him." Before Wang Zheng could reply, all of the surrounding students were already riled up. Masasi's and Carl's existence had ignited everyone's curiosity and competitive spirit. However, the two of them were just too fearsome. Other than Wang Zheng, no one else could hold a candle to them. Carl's arrogance led others to be irritated, yet Masasi's calm and aloof personality provoked others even more. It was rare to see Masasi, an elite greater than other elites, challenge Wang Zheng on his own initiative. "Masasi, are you sure you don't want to compete against Xie Yuxin instead?" asked Zhang Guodong, the instructor in charge of the shooting practice. He too was excited at such a development. However, to him, Masasi was definitely very experienced in gun handling. Although the Earth's and the Moon's training was slightly different, to Masasi there was no difference. From his body posture to his firing technique, it was skillful and precise. He was the textbook example of a confident shooter. As an instructor, even Guodong himself felt slightly pressured. Yet Wang Zheng was clearly a novice touching a gun for the first time. He followed every instruction during training to the letter, and his results weren't bad. Although at times he could hit all 10 targets, other times he only managed to hit 7 or 8. Compared to him, among the rest of the students, Xie Yuxin was clearly the best shooter among them. "Boss, beat him. I will support you." This little competition had attracted the attention of numerous individuals, and even the military support department's students had come over. Obviously this included Yan Xiaoshu. The surrounding students looked at him as Yan Xiaoshu puffed his chest out and proudly exclaimed, "That is my older brother, we have been together since we're in diapers." Wang Zheng shrugged his shoulders nonchalantly, "Sure, how will we compete?" Zhang Guodong nodded his head. "Existing targets, 10 shots each." "Count me in as well. Masasi, this is Wang Zheng's first time. This is just a one-sided slaughter," Xie Yuxin angrily replied. Masasi gave him a slight smile. "If he really was a novice, it would be embarrassing for me to even fire my gun." Zhang Guodong stared blankly. Everyone else had a similar expression on their faces. What in the world were they talking about? Up till now, Masasi had the best training scores followed by Xie Yuxin. Wang Zheng had followed the instructions to the letter and was not even in the top 20. The three prepared to fire. 10 bullets each. The rest of the students gathered around them and held their breaths in anticipation. No one could distract them from this. The three started firing at the same time. Bang, 10 hits. 10 hits. 10 hits. Wang Zheng's shots had suddenly become accurate. 10 shots, 10 hits. Xie Yuxin was slightly surprised. Had he surpassed his limits? "We won't be able to determine the victor like this. When I was on the moon, I often competed with my friends with another method." Masasi introduced a new set of rules. They would have their backs towards the target, and after 3 seconds, they would act simultaneously. The first one to open fire and hit the target the most times would win. The level of difficulty for this game had increased substantially. Zhang Guodong readily agreed. These little bastards were really too vicious. Yet in the monitoring room, Ji Yutae and Luo Yun watched the show with keen interest. There is some difficulty involved in this. If one is too rash, the hit rate will definitely fall. I really can't tell that it's Wang Zheng's first time touching a gun. That bastard is really quite amazing. Let's see how he performs. The three turned around while Zhang Guodong prepared to count down. While Masashi and Xie Yuxin used a single-hand shooting style, Wang Zheng used a two-handed shooting style, as that was what was taught by the instructor. Masashi and Xie Yuxin could be said to be of another world. Although the two-handed shooting style was more stable, him turning around to shoot would definitely be slower. 3, 2, 1. The three individuals moved at the exact same time. Masashi and Xie Yuxin turned to their right simultaneously, arms following accordingly. They turned around quite quickly and took aim simultaneously. Quickly and violently turning their bodies. Not only was Masashi experienced at this, but so was Xie Yuxin. It was difficult to see who was the better man. Yet at this point, a gun had already fired. Bang, 10 hits. The entire place was silent. Masashi and Xie Yuxin froze. They had just turned around and yet Wang Zheng had already fired? Wang Zheng did not even bother to turn around. He had placed his hands behind his back and fired. At this point, the entire field had burst into raucous applause. Yan Xiaoshu was the most spirited one. Did you see that? That was my older brother, the one I grew up with since we were in diapers. In the monitoring room, Ji Yutae and Luo Yun looked at each other. It was like they had seen a ghost. Wasn't firing behind one's back a skill only certain veterans possessed? Display all of the targets he previously shot at, Major Luo Yun suddenly commanded. One target after another was displayed on the screen. Ji Yutae and Luo Yun could only stare in disbelief. What in the world was this? Although he had indeed only hit 7, 8, and sometimes even 5 times, the problem was that every single target had a pattern on it. There were smiley faces, Milky Way coin designs, Granny's leg, some even had the school crest on them. "Principal, congratulations," said Luo Yun as he gave a salute. Within 1,000 soldiers, there would be at least one who would plead to enter the college. Ji Yutae had never once imagined that this accident would reap such gains. This student had a genetic evaluation of 28 points? Even 82 points would be considered low for someone like him. Masashi gave a bitter smile. "Looks like I underestimated you." Among everyone there, Masashi was the only one who had noticed Wang Zheng's target's details. This bastard was too carefree. He felt that the shooting practice was extremely pointless despite him being interested in it. Clearly, he was different from the rest. Wang Zheng had no choice. At the same time, he finally understood why Bonehead had forced him to open his eyes wide. It was to train his visual acuity. He could feel the Rubik's Cube in the pit of his stomach heat up. It was a good sign. Once his basic foundations had been set, it was akin to him owning a treasure. What he needed now was to train in the midst of battle. Yet this was still the first part of training. He did not know how things would be like once he had completed it. Would he really be able to become a war god? This was very thrilling. Everyone should set their sights on surpassing them. Train well, the military training is about to end. I hope that the experiences you have had during this period will be helpful, Zhang Guodong said. Everyone gave a round of applause. This time's military training had changed everyone. Whether one had learned anything or not, at the very least, everyone's willpower had gained aspects of a soldier's resolve. As for student Wang, he had become the man of the moment despite being unknown previously. 1 month later, military training had officially ended. Wang Zheng had completely surpassed Masashi in results to become the one with the top scores. It was not until now that the mecha department students realized that he was from the physics department. Wang Zheng was slightly reluctant to part with the training, because bitter suffering awaited him in the physics department. The conclusion of military training brought with it 2 days of rest. Everyone wanted to rest, and on Saturday and Sunday there would be the gathering with the mecha department's girls. After the military training, the physics department males were getting excited at the thought of meeting the girls. Wang Zheng's Saturday was free. Yan Xiaoshu and Xie Yuxin had returned home, and the old merchant had left with all of his belongings. After Wang Jung finished his breakfast, he headed towards Brothers Net Cafe. When the owner saw Wang Jung, his eyes brimmed with tears of excitement. Ever since school started, business was bad. Why couldn't schools have holidays all year round? Wang Jung used the VIP booth as per usual. He had not played for some time and he could feel a genuine itch to do so. Skeleton's ID lit up. Wang Jung changed his profile picture to that of a skeleton's head as well, even though it was not as adorable as the real bonehead. A month to most people would be over in the blink of an eye. However, to some others who were bitterly waiting, it felt like a year. Solon had a massive headache. He was unable to contact Skeleton at all. He had disappeared for a month. Hopefully he was not lost forever. Had he been kidnapped? Solon had never felt this concerned, not even for his own son. Boss, he's here, F***CK, he's finally here, begin all the preparations. Yes, on the forum, this time it was not only the beginner arena page that was engaged in chatter, even the main page had a notice. The pentakill from last time had become the pride and legend of the beginner arena. Skeleton's video from last month had already been released in numerous editions. Hey, who is this? It's so early in the morning, are you looking to die? Number 6, hurry up. Skeleton is online, F***CK, I'm coming. There were usually less players in the morning, however, this time, the number of users started to increase. In fact, it increased as quickly as a rocket taking off. Boss, everything is in position. Do we begin? Begin, said Solon as he nodded his head. This bastard is slightly hard to deal with. He only commentates high-level games. I'm afraid that. Solon slammed the table as he shouted, no matter, directly broadcast. The individual they were referring to was a gold-ranked commentator named Young Deer. In the commentator world, he was relatively famous. He only commentated for popular live streams and videos, but this time, he was invited by Solon. He was extremely popular and people loved him. He strongly believed that this would be his trump card. The players wanted to view the match directly, but they were surprised to see that it had already started broadcasting. Good day, everyone. I am Young Deer of the Brotherhood, also known as the troublemaking Young Deer. Recently, I heard of a user by the name of Skeleton who has been exceptionally outstanding, and I'm here to see for myself. Although his ID was Young Deer, this brother was definitely a man. He had 2 long whiskers that seemed to float in the air. We still have a bit of time. Can everyone remember the last battle? It was truly a sight to behold. He even managed to score a pentakill. Although he only killed noobs, I still think he can be known as the noob farmer. Young Deer mocked. He had not prepared for this livestream, and if not for Solon's invitation, he would not have been interested in this at all. This guy was just bullying noobs. What was he worth? As he finished speaking, the chat box erupted with messages, riddled with sounds of ridicule. Young Deer personally felt that he was very popular, however, as he watched, he couldn't stomach it any longer. F***CK. What kind of bastard could use the war god number 1 to such a level? Kakeke, Young Deer has to amend his opinion. This guy seems like a pretty decent player after all. Everyone, please sit tight as we await his next battle. Pausing the live stream temporarily, he let the users listen to some of his preferred music. Young Deer hurriedly started to watch all of Skeleton's videos. The more he watched, the more surprised he became. This bastard was a freak of nature. He was an expert in close combat. Looked like this would not be as pointless as he had imagined. Including the battle where he had assisted Yan Xiaoshu, Wang Jung had already achieved 5 consecutive victories. This was already the ultimate threshold for most players. The matchmaking system would naturally assign him tougher and tougher opponents, so his chances of victory would subsequently fall. Boss, there are numerous high-level experts who have appeared in the matchmaker. I think they wish to battle Skeleton. Hee, this is the exact result I wanted. But won't this match Skeleton up with high-level mecha? Won't this be a problem? Solon had a knowing smile on his face. Battles like these cannot be avoided, and he will have to fight them eventually. At most he will just be forced to change the mech he uses. So long as he wins, we will continue to do this. But boss, he has never replied to us. What if he doesn't change his mech? Solon was stunned for a moment. F***CK. How could he have forgotten such an important matter? What are you waiting for? Hurry up and inform him then. Are you a pig? Wang Jung did indeed see his system message inbox blink repeatedly, but since he was preparing for battle, he didn't feel like replying. Matchmaking complete. ID, Northwest Wind, Rank, Bronze 3, Mech, Magnetic Storm Guardian. Magnetic Storm Guardian, a high-end mech. This mech was an exported model. It possessed overwhelming long-distance firepower and an inbuilt magnetic field that interfered with the enemy mech's systems. It was commonly used by the soldiers of the moon. However, on the other side, Solon felt like he was an ant on top of a burning wok. Why was Skeleton not responding to him? ID. Skeleton, War God #1. Young Deer couldn't help but be extremely excited. The battle ahead would definitely be very interesting. Even he couldn't fully understand how a War God #1 would be able to beat a Magnetic Storm Guardian. Yet when he saw the number of paying audience members, he was shocked speechless at the sight. Granny's leg, there were 30,000 viewers already. In the high-level arenas, this would already be considered a pretty decent number, not to mention the beginner arena, where people were rarely interested in their battles. It looked like this guy was pretty well received here. Hello, everyone, I would like to welcome everyone on this sunny morning to enjoy this battle in the beginner's arena. War God #1 versus the Magnetic Storm Guardian. I'm very curious as to how Skeleton will plan to use his titanium alloy blade to stab the Magnetic Storm Guardian to death. Ridiculed Young Deer. Everyone should know that the Magnetic Storm Guardian's nickname is the Thunder God. It is a mech that is well-rounded in every aspect, and it's commonly used in the high-level arenas. It has an inbuilt magnetic field that is specialized in inhibiting long-range sniping. F***CK. Did I see something wrong? Our courageous Skeleton has chosen his weapon, and for today, he has chosen the laser rifle, God. While Young Deer was explaining, he couldn't help but to let out a sigh of admiration. This time, there were numerous viewers who had been invited by their friends. They couldn't be bothered to watch the video. Some had just entered, and once they did, they saw a shocking scene before them. This expert was acting like an idiot. Using the War God #1 was fine, but at least have some common sense. The Magnetic Storm Guardian was the bane of long-ranged attackers. Its key ability was to disrupt long-ranged combat. Although using the War God #1 was already as good as digging one's own grave, if one were to wait for the right opportunity and engage in melee combat, with Skeleton's close combat abilities, there was definitely a chance to attain victory. However, he did not bring the knife but chose the laser rifle instead. The problem was that the laser rifle of War God #1 was a basic one, so it would definitely be disrupted by the magnetic field. Young Deer did not expect to run into such a situation this morning. Hello, my fellow early risers, it looks like this competition will be over soon. Our little friend Skeleton looks like he has yet to wake up. He's continued to use War God #1 and even brought the laser rifle. I think he gave up after seeing his opponent. The atmosphere in the broadcast had changed. The ones that were left were just waiting for it to end. In the office, Solon hit the table angrily. You group of idiots, you can't even contact a single individual. Communication. Communication was extremely important. He greatly wished to interact with Skeleton. He wanted to let the opposing party know what a great financial opportunity he was, and that if the two of them had worked together, they could have created a miracle. But this opportunity was about to be destroyed. Even a kindergartner could tell you that one could not utilize the laser rifle against the Magnetic Storm Guardian. The biggest problem was that Skeleton was clearly a close combat expert. Why in the world would he use a laser rifle? Suddenly, a thought arose in everyone's minds. He must have selected the wrong weapon. He definitely selected the wrong weapon. F***CK. It was unfortunate that there was no option to back out of the match. Match begin. Battle location. City battleground. The city possessed numerous buildings that could serve as cover. Was he planning to literally use the rifle to bludgeon the Magnetic Storm Guardian to death? The Magnetic Storm Guardian had an energy shield, so even if he were to swing wildly with the rifle for an entire day, the shield would not break. Excellent, Skeleton. My little friend is planning to come out in public with a stunning appearance. He seems to be slightly perplexed as he examines his laser rifle. Looks like he really did choose the wrong weapon. To everyone watching this livestream, I am Young Deer. and I will be commentating on this battle of CT in the beginner's arena. This battle will teach everyone an important lesson. Lacking common sense is indeed fatal. By now, Skeleton already had numerous supporters. Yet under the insults and scolding of the other viewers, they had no way to defend Skeleton's actions. Everyone possessed common sense after all. Boss, the battle has begun, but the viewer numbers continue to rise. Attention to it is also increasing. Solon did not want to watch at this point, however, even if it was to be his final firework, he was obligated to personally witness this battle. On the screen, War God number 1 hefted his laser rifle and started spinning it around in circles. He seemed extremely curious. Then he fired a shot to the east and a shot to the west. This clearly exposed his current position. The magnetic storm guardian had already started moving in War God number 1's direction. Excellent, looks like this will be a quick defeat. Contestant Skeleton has nonchalantly revealed his position. Based on previous analysis, within a 100 meters range, the magnetic storm guardian can completely disrupt the enemy mech's shooting assistance system. Although some experts might be able to compensate for the interference caused by the magnetic field and adjust the laser, most individuals can't. I would like to emphasize that only experts are able to do so. Young Deer smiled as he explained. At this point in time, Young Deer's Skylink received a message. If it was a more exciting match, he would definitely have left the message for later, but at this point in time, there was nothing worth paying attention to and hence he opened the message. Young Deer was instantly overjoyed. Dear viewers, I have just received a message. Our contestant, Northwest Winds user, is none other than the Asia region's number 9th player with the magnetic storm guardian, Zhang Hao. Congratulations contestant, Skeleton, he will not lose to an unknown challenger. This implied that there would be no chance for victory. The magnetic storm guardian was walking forward carefully, his sides against the walls beside him. Even if the enemy ambushed him, he would have a way to react. In all honesty, Zhang Hao did not feel that the enemy had any chance of victory, however, he did not want to take any chances. The War God number 1 did not have any intention of hiding. Within a few minutes, the two individuals spotted each other and clashed. The magnetic storm guardian unreservedly began to fire his lasers at him. The magnetic storm guardian possessed high explosive lasers, which had significantly more firepower compared to a War God number 1 small gun. Facing magnetic storm guardian's ferocious assault, War God number 1 has retreated. Excellent, this is an extremely smart move. Looks like contestant, Skeleton, has not given up. Please forgive me for not being professional, but I want to drink some milk. For the sake of this battle, I have not even had breakfast. As Young Deer finished speaking, he immediately took out a bottle of milk. Having an incisive personality was a commentator's characteristic, especially since he was coerced to come and commentate such a low-level game. It was indeed humiliating. The magnetic storm guardian's magnetic field had been activated. It covered the battlefield. Zhang Hao took the initiative quickly. In this sort of situation, so long as he suppressed the enemy, it would be easy to crush him. When using the magnetic storm guardian, it was important to keep some distance from the enemy to maximize the effect of his magnetic field. Thus, even as he chased, Zhang Hao continued to maintain a safe distance. Looking at the capabilities of the mech, most expert mecha did not possess significant speed. However, the magnetic storm guardian could not possibly be worse than the War God number 1. Once he caught a trace of the enemy, it would be impossible to escape from his grasp. Once the War God number 1 appeared, he would be subjected to vicious assault and would have no way to retaliate. Zhang Hao slowly approached the corner where the War God number 1 was hiding. He would eventually run out of space to retreat. Everyone should be familiar with the city battlegrounds map. Within the next 3 minutes, Magnetic Storm Guardian will definitely corner War God number 1, and it will be the moment everyone is waiting for. Fellow viewers, give me a moment to drink some milk. Whenever I see a bad performance, my stomach feels hungry. Young Deer's insults led those previously depressed viewers to become exceedingly angry. They began to flood the chat box with comments of their own. Both sides were arguing with each other. At this point in time, a small minority still believed a miracle would happen. Young Deer drank milk as he watched before laughing. I can't believe contestant Skeleton still has some die-hard fans. At this point in time, some still believe he can win. I, young deer, have broadcasted for 3 years already and even commentated for the tyrannical clash of kings. I am confident that this situation has no chance for reversal, none at all. If Skeleton wins, I will eat this milk carton. Young deer spoke as he laughed loudly. He didn't understand what Solon was trying to do. He heard that Solon would no longer be able to work for much longer, so he wanted to give him some face. But who would have known that it was a trap? Commentating such a performance would be considered a joke in his circle of friends, and the more he thought about it, the more he regretted it. Just as young deer spoke, the war god #1 was located. Suppressed under the magnetic storm guardian's firepower, he continued to retreat backwards with very little space left. At this point in time, the magnetic storm guardian had forced its way across towards Skeleton. At this rate, within 10 seconds, they would meet face to face. From the start of the battle till now, the war god #1 had not fired at the enemy. Thus, it led people to wonder if he knew how to use the laser rifle. 10, 9, excellent. Contestant Skeleton has decided to make his last stand. He is awaiting the moment his opponent appears. What a pity this is. When the magnetic storm guardian was about to appear in front of the war god #1, he suddenly paused and then rushed out. This prevented the enemy from taking the initiative and spotting him, causing the war god #1 to lose his element of surprise. The magnetic storm guardian stood face to face with war god #1. Both sides' guns were already facing each other. The magnetic storm guardian began to fire. Rat-a-tat-tat-tat. 4 lasers beams were fired directly at war god #1. From a commentator's perspective, the finale was crucial. Magnetic guardian fires. Excellent, his shots are very accurate. War god #1 has climbed behind the wall. This is the final wall he can hide behind before he loses his life. Bang! The war god #1 returned fire. Without the assistance of the shooting system, the laser raced towards the magnetic storm guardian. Zhang Hao broke out in cold sweat and immediately activated his energy shield. This was a basic function of the magnetic field, yet the laser had not been disrupted. The laser hit the cockpit directly. Ah, not bad. He indeed does display the skill of one of Asia region's top 10 magnetic storm guardians. His ability to disrupt the enemy's laser is very precise. The war god #1 will be down to his last breath soon, laughed young deer. This shot had led everyone to feel shocked. Those that were following the scene closely sighed in admiration. It was a pity that Zhang Hao had not turned on his energy shield and was almost destroyed. However, now the energy shield had been turned on. With its activation, Zhang Hao could not afford to waste the energy, so he rushed in the direction where Wang Zheng was hiding, pulverizing all the debris in his way as far as the eye could see. The war god #1 jumped into the air. He was definitely looking for death. Bang! The laser fired. The magnetic storm guardian wanted to return fire, but the mech was rocked by a vicious explosion. He was hit. Was it a lucky hit, as he prepared to swap his equipment? Rumble, the mech was rocked by another impact. This was caused by the war god #1, who had landed in front of him a distance away. He was no longer going to hide as he prepared to suppress the magnetic storm guardian. Rumble. Rumble. The magnetic field should have been able to interfere and disrupt one's shooting assistance system. But what if the pilot did not require it? What if the pilot was a godly marksman? The magnetic field could indeed disrupt the laser and cause it to deviate. But what if the pilot could make the necessary calculations and correct the deviation? What if the pilot had prepared in advance? Technically speaking, such a feat was possible. However, practically speaking, it was impossible for anyone to execute it. The laser hit the energy shield repeatedly, resulting in the magnetic storm guardian shaking endlessly. However, Zhang Hao exerted excellent self-control and calmed his heart. All he needed was one shot. One chance and he would be able to turn the enemy into scrap metal. Time was of the essence. Even if his energy shield was hit, with the war god #1's rifle, it would still require more than 10 shots to deplete it. Magnetic storm guardian raised his high explosive laser rifle. Bang! The whole world went silent. There was a bright flash and the magnetic storm guardian's rifle exploded. This was the war god #1's target. The tables had turned. The high explosive laser rifle had been destroyed, and the magnetic storm guardian had become an unarmed pretty little girl. The war god number 1 continued to advance. Those in the chat box who had previously held on to the very end were suddenly filled with burning fervor. Bang, bang, every hit on the magnetic storm guardian caused it to rock. Zhang Hao immediately withdrew his alloy blade and rushed towards war god number 1. He had to rush into the enemy before his energy shield was depleted. The war god number 1 did not show any intention to dodge. He continued to fire round after round at the magnetic storm guardian. There was only a distance of 10 odd meters between the two. The eighth shot depleted the energy shield of the magnetic storm guardian. 6 meters. Bang, headshot, 9 shots, skeleton win. Resounding applause flooded everyone's ears. Everyone's eyes were full of fireworks. Could someone even win in such a situation? At this point in time, young Deer was cut off from the screen. Actually, while he commentated, he was holding the carton of milk. However, the straw which he had been drinking from had jammed into his nose. He had taken a deep breath in surprise and was half choked to death. The chat box had erupted into a frenzy of activity. Young Deer, your mother's calling for you to go back home and drink milk. Hurry up and eat the milk carton, we are waiting. Although the battle was over, the situation was not. Zhang Hao had opened the public channel to let everyone see who he was. He wanted to use this opportunity to become famous, but who would have thought that such a situation would occur? There was a bug. The war god number 1's laser rifle would definitely require at least 10 shots to deplete the energy shield. This was calculated, Zhang Hao exclaimed. If the shield had blocked one more shot, he would have been the victor. At the same time, the viewers were whispering amongst themselves. Although no one was really paying attention, it was true that people had done tests on this before. Especially in the higher level arenas, the amount of damage one could sustain was calculated very precisely. Especially since the war god number 1 was such a basic model, it was best used for testing. Could it be that this war god number 1 had a problem? Solon was so happy that he looked as though he was on drugs. Quickly, analyze the video. No one else was clearer about this than Solon. There were definitely no bugs. Since there were no bugs, then it was definitely due to skill. Whether one agreed or not, everyone, including young Deer, was waiting for the analysis. As a professional commentator, he was extremely clear. With war god number 1's laser energy, it would definitely require more than 10 shots to deplete the shield. If the shots were badly placed, it would take even more hits. The analysis of the video came out. Even the chat box had become temporarily silent. Everyone's movements had slowed down. The war god number 1's shots had been affected slightly by the displacing effects of the magnetic field. However, even under these conditions, he was still able to hit his target accurately. Although it was easy to say, this went against what was expected. Even under close scrutiny, no one could believe he was able to do this. The war god number 1 was extremely accurate with the laser rifle. At this point in time, no one was concerned with his monstrous ability to calibrate the rifle on the fly and his accuracy in hitting the enemy. The problem was that he had only fired 9 shots. Everyone knew that 9 shots was not sufficient to break the shield. Furthermore, 1 shot had even hit the gun. At this point, the eagerly awaited analysis had come out. Other than the single shot that had hit the gun, the other 8 shots had all hit the exact same position. Energy superposition dissipation law. When the same position was hit by repeated fire, the energy consumption for shield deflection would increase. The analysis showed the energy shield's energy consumption. By the time the 7th shot had hit, the shield had only 8% of its energy left. Thus, when the 8th shot had hit, it destroyed the shield and hit the mech. This was a very precise attack. He had just succeeded by a slim margin. The shield had been destroyed as a result, and the magnetic storm guardian was unable to leave even a scratch on the enemy despite sacrificing his life. This was a miracle. It was a string of coincidences that had led to this occurrence. If just one thing had gone wrong, the war god number 1 would have lost. Yet as a result, Skeleton won. At this point, the live stream had a new attraction. Young Deer had wordlessly started to tear up the milk carton, cramming it into his mouth piece by piece. He was really swallowing the milk carton. The last mouthful had to be washed down with water. He looked as though he had been constipated for over 10 days with the grimace on his face. One of the official staff beside him suddenly spoke as though prompted and asked, "Commentator Young Deer, I'm sure everyone would like to ask what your opinion on this battle would be." Young Deer calmed himself and then replied, "Hee hee, I admit, I almost peed in my pants. This was the work of a god. Invulnerable god Skeleton. All of you have been tricked. Skeleton was actually a long-ranged expert marksman. Revealing CT's largest secret, the war god #1 is actually an all-rounded mech." Student Wong was currently recalling his gains. The Rubik's Cube had a reaction to the battle, but it was not exceptionally large. This gain was not as significant compared to the military training he had gone through. The battle was not exceptionally difficult either. Although the viewers had watched with exceptional fervor and trepidation, in reality, once the first laser had been deflected, the battle was already over. Calibrating for the magnetic field was nothing special. Wang Zheng's strongest suit was his mathematics and spatial judgment. Once he fired a single round, he was able to calibrate the magnetic field's interference. Actually, if he was able to fire faster, 8 shots instead of 9 would have been sufficient. Perhaps then he would have gained a larger amount of battle energy. Wang Zheng felt that he had to work harder. It was such an easy battle, but he did not perform better. After his self-review, he paid his bills and left. If his enemy had known how Wang Zheng was feeling, he would probably have quit CT altogether. "Boss, there are currently 46,000 paying viewers, it's a new record." The entire office was filled with applause. Solon then noticed that he was covered in sweat. He tried his best to show a relaxed expression. He spoke, "It has been tough on everyone. Our next task will be to figure out a way to contact Skeleton. Don't worry, we will continue to message him. One day he will be moved by our sincerity." Solon strode back to his office steadily. Closing the door, he jumped up in excitement like a little kid. This was too sweet. Those that woke up early on a weekend morning only to watch the match were few. They would definitely go and play a few rounds themselves. Suddenly, everyone was wondering why in the world were there so many players choosing to play the War God #1. After watching Skeleton's War God #1's godly performance, everyone felt that the War God #1 was an extremely strong mech. Actually, other than the fact that it had no energy shields and an average offensive capability, despite the limited choices for equipment, it had an excellent ability to adapt to its surroundings, making it the most optimal decision. This was a mech that could allow one to become a god. Thus, numerous passionate kids were all tricked. They lost so quickly and so much that they even lost their pants in gambling stakes. They cried out desperately. Many of them were unable to dodge other mechas' assaults. Even more often than not, before they could even unsheath their alloy knives, they would already be reduced into a fiery heap. Of course, there were also those who were able to operate it better. After ambushing an enemy from a corner and relentlessly attacking, once the fight began, they realized that they could not even deplete the enemy's shields, and as a result, they too would be reduced into a smoldering heap. The War God #1, at the end of the day, was still a War God #1, a training mech. However, after using it, people finally realized that this wasn't AF King mech, this was a trap. The more professional gamers all formed their own corps. It was a form of glory. Of course, forming a corps around a single elite made more sense. All of the famous corps were built like that. Just having several strong elites were enough. All of those corps that were slightly more famous usually had a diamond-level player as the leader. At the same time, they set high standards for entry in order to develop promising talent. This was the only way to maintain a corps' glory and fame. At the same time, this would help spread the corps' fame. Yet on this day, a special corps had been formed. This corps was known as the Skeleton Corps. It was different from the rest. This corps had no requirement for the player's skill level. However, the leader was not part of it yet. No one knew who this leader really was. The most important part was that to enter this corps, one had to believe in miracles. When this corps was formed, there were thousands of people who rushed to join. More accurately, thousands of noobs joined. In actuality, Wang Zheng's recent battle analysis video had already been entered as one of the top 100 searched Solar System Federation CT games. Particularly noteworthy was the fact that it was the only game from the beginner arena. There were too many experts, and the tyrannical Clash of Kings had numerous exciting matches. Even in such a situation, such a match was worthy of being placed among them. It also had to be said that young Deer was a courageous man. He actually ate the entire milk carton. The battle was a blessing in disguise for him. At the start of the match, everyone believed Skeleton was only capable of close combat. Usually, a professional player would only focus on a specific type of combat and not be a jack of all trades. Furthermore, with the War God number 1, the laser rifle was as good as a decorative ornament. Yet after this match, it showed everyone that nothing was set in stone. No one would now dare to say that a War God number 1 could not shoot someone to death. Compared to his close combat ability, Skeleton's degree of skill in marksmanship was even more unfathomable. This battle was not satisfying, especially to the players who had used the War God number 1 and had been tyrannically oppressed. They could only watch the videos to feel recharged and after that continue to battle before getting destroyed again. Yet for some unknown reason, their hearts would be filled with passion. Every male longed to become a god. However, such a sight was quite common. When they lost, it would give rise to numerous insults among players. Even then the teammates would hope, what if one day they were matched with the real Skeleton? A torrent of new usernames cropped up. The real Skeleton, Skeleton number 2, Skeleton 00, and so on. These would lead those kids who were eagerly hoping for a fluke to be left in tears. This was true abuse. Some of the players were extremely resolute about playing the War God number 1. Their ranking points were like that of a waterfall streaming down 1,000 meters, plummeting to almost nothing. On the other hand, the one who had caused this entire disaster, Student Wong, was currently deciding what to have for lunch. His choices were quite plentiful. Old Tan, 1, pickled vegetables and beef noodles, Old Tan pickled vegetables and pork noodles, or perhaps he should have Old Tan pickled vegetables and lamb noodles. In the end, Student Wong opted for a bowl of Kong Shifu's, 2, instant noodles. When he was paying, Wong Jung suddenly realized that something was amiss. His bank account had an additional $10,000. That was a massive fortune. Where did this come from? What if it was a mistake? He would have to return it. If he didn't do this properly, he would be seen as untrustworthy. This was not a joke. As he ate his instant noodles, he continued to figure out how this could have happened. As he ate, tears welled up in Student Wang's eyes. God, he could finally see the light at the end of the tunnel. He would no longer have to eat instant noodles. Quick as a bullet, Wang Jung rushed towards the canteen and immediately ordered 3 dishes and a soup. Even the canteen operator was stunned at the sight of what had just transpired. After eating and drinking his fill, Student Wang once again could feel the joy of living. When one scar reaches the mountain, there will definitely be a road. 3. When he saw the large number of emails, Wang Jung finally understood. This was not a mistaken transaction, it was given to him by the CT system. That guy by the name of Solon was the real deal. In order to let Wang Jung believe him, Solon had fully researched every aspect of Wang Jung. In actual fact, it would be better for Wang Jung to find opponents close to his skill level. Fighting weak opponents was meaningless. Additionally, there was a significant problem. The Rubik's Cube would not only not grow hotter but would at times grow colder. When it became cold, the battle energy decreased. This would happen when Wang Jung's performance was poor or when he made mistakes. Sometimes it would not be due to the fact that Wang Jung performed poorly but rather that the opponent was too weak. Even if there was no better option, this did not matter to the Rubik's Cube. The less often such situations occurred, the better for him. After randomly picking an email, Wang Jung sent a reply. He did not want to be too entangled with the opposing party. He wanted things to be simple. If the constraints were too significant, it would affect his daily life. Solon was in an extremely good mood. Although he had patiently suffered waiting for the reply, it had bore fruit. Skeleton would always give him a surprise. When the Skeleton Corps had formed, the CT administrators had even disseminated a message. This was treatment only reserved for the most elite of Corps. The workers were currently giving Solon a report on the numbers. They were constantly updating the information database. Most importantly, in the beginner arena, the Asian region had not seen a decrease in number of players. Solon finally felt that he could finally sit firmly on his butt. His retirement sum was waving at him. Suddenly, the Skylink rang. There was a new email. Solon lazily glanced over, but very quickly his large frame stood up. He hurriedly opened the message. As he was too nervous, he constantly opened the wrong mail. In the end, he managed to open the email. There was only one word in the email: okay. Outside, the workers were busy with their tasks. As player activity increased, their workload increased as well. At this point, loud laughter could be heard from the chairman's office. It was absolutely ear-piercing. To Wang Zheng, for this period of time, he would no longer have any worries. Even the sun seemed exceptionally radiant. In addition, if he became rich, he could find a more specialized place to train his body. Simple running was not sufficient for him to further train his body. He also required more nutrients to accommodate it. Back in the dormitory, the other three coincidentally happened to be there. Zhang Shan was meticulously combing his hair. Yao Ailun was currently engrossed in his computer game, mumbling to himself while nodding continuously, while Chen Shu was sitting by Ailun's side, eyes sparkling in delight. "You're back. How's my hair?" Zhang Shan was preparing for tomorrow's gathering. Beautiful ladies were like spring. If one did not get a girlfriend in college, it was absolutely sad. "Not bad. What are the two of you doing?" "Don't bother those two nerds, they are playing some computer game." "What's the point?" Zhang Shan could not understand and shrugged his shoulders. He could not imagine himself being excited over such pointless things. "Zhang Shan, don't be such an unsophisticated plebeian. This is the most modern game in the Milky Way, CT. Shay, so what? If you want to satisfy your cravings, why don't you pilot an actual mech?" Zhang Shan disdainfully replied. He was thinking the same that Wang Zheng thought in the past. This guy's skill defies the natural order. With regards to actuarials, his ability to do math isn't bad, said Chen Shu as he watched from the side. The two of them were stereotypical noobs who loved the game and were theorists. When one discussed CT tactics, the two were professors. However, in actual gameplay, they were no different from kindergarteners. The two of them were rather powerless, as their bodies could not keep up with their minds. Wang Zheng gave them a look and was speechless. Yao Ailun was currently creating his display picture. "Wang Zheng, didn't you say that you wanted to become a mech pilot? Come here and take a look at this guy. His skill is unnatural, and he is a real expert. He does not use those high-end mechs like those other arrogant players. If he was a military school student, it would be no small matter." "Haha, it's just a game, no need to be so serious," replied Wang Zheng. Yao Ailun's small eyes underneath his glasses sparkled with light. "Just you see, guys. This guy will definitely create a miracle. Do you have interest in joining the Skeleton Corps? It was created by Brother Yao and me," said Chen Shu, enthusiastically. After understanding the situation, Student Wang was slightly speechless. These two were truly passionate and carefree. Zhang Shan grabbed Wang Zheng. "Don't let these two nerds lead you astray. Follow me, your older brother, and your future opportunities will be boundless. Don't associate yourself with them." "Shay, Zhang Shan, we have already made preparations for our leader. What ways of the world? The time of the muscular male is long over. This is the era of the elite, and one will have to walk the path of an elite." Yao Ailun opened his cupboard and removed a parcel. Within 5 minutes, he had completely transformed. In a brief moment, he was dressed in a Western suit, and his hair really looked like that of an elite. Student Yao changed to a pair of golden-rimmed spectacles and adjusted his collar while looking disdainfully at Zhang Shan. When dealing with girls, for one to have the poise of a gentleman, one will have to go the mile to look the part. Wang Zheng and Zhang Shan stared at each other in disbelief. Who could have believed that this hardcore nerd could transform in a snap? This transformation was too fearsome. This is called disguising yourself. Don't be envious, brother. Did you not hear of my legend? At Taifeng Middle School, who did not hear of Yao Ailun's distinguished playboy nickname? Chen Shu looked enviously at Yao Ailun. "Actually, I have made my own preparations. Mother said that age is not an issue, and that in university, it's better to find more than one girlfriend for the sake of the future." The dormitory was filled with silence. Wang Zheng and the other two were slightly petrified. What kind of modern-age mother was that? "Wang Zheng, what about you? Are you planning to wear your school uniform?" Wang Zheng replied helplessly as he shrugged his shoulders. "I'm fine with anything. Anyways, like this, Yi Zissou will instantly recognize me. FK. The two of you are so close. You wouldn't have acted already, would you? S*T. It's just a trap for the rest of us. Wait, wrong. We are all brothers in arms, and she is yours. I will not fight with you over her. Zhang Shan replied with a spirit of loyalty and self-sacrifice. No, everyone, please work hard, we are only classmates. Wang Zheng shrugged his shoulders. Although they were friends, he felt quite strange. Yi Zissou was always helping him. If he looked at it differently, Yu Jing had left the city because of his actions. Brother Zheng, you wouldn't happen to prefer males, would you? Chen Shu asked curiously. My mother used to say that times have changed, and that the best guys have been snatched by other males. The other three in the dormitory once again looked on speechlessly. They suddenly felt that there was a generational gap between them and Chen Shu. Student Chen Shu, you are already in college, so your heart should be that of an adult. You must have your own opinions in future. Wang Zheng used to think that his train of thought was sufficiently weird, but when compared to Chen Shu, he was way too normal. But, you have not answered my previous question. Scram, this brother likes women. Student Wang stomped off in a fury while the other three roared with laughter. They had tricked Student Wang. Chen Shu was merely pulling his leg. Although Chen Shu was the youngest in the dormitory, he had the largest number of devious ideas. Brother Yao, someone is here to quarrel with you. Yao Ailun rushed to the computer. FK these noobs. They took the King's Arena videos to commentate on. Damn it. When will Skeleton wreck these experts? I will see how they scream then. Brother Yao, I have compared the Sol Federation's mechs. Theoretically speaking, the War God #1 does possess an upper limit. When competing against the mecha used in the tyrannical Clash of Kings, the odds of victory are extremely low. As devoted members of the Skeleton Corps, we have to believe in miracles. We have to believe that Skeleton will represent us and beat those guys silly. Hopefully he will see the article 1 have written on the merits and drawbacks of the mech. Brother Zheng, do you want to take a look? It has been posted on the official site, said Chen Shu. He was an avid fan of Court at the same time. He was a noob eternally struggling in the beginner's arena, and he would always get scolded by his teammates until he could not utter a single reply. However, when it came to theoretical discussion, no one could best him there. Sure, I am quite interested in this. Okay, I will send a copy to your Skylink, said Chen Shu. He enjoyed sharing his work with other individuals. Wang Zheng also wanted to better understand. Fighting against the magnetic Storm Guardian was quite interesting. It was great that he was matched against a slightly weaker opponent, because if the opponent was any stronger, it might have been too tough to beat. On the outskirts of the European region's central LD district, there existed a grand villa which spanned 2/3 of a hectare. In a spacious and shining gym, a young man was currently engaged in training with his bare hands. Beside him were 4 individuals who were wielding long knives. The knives were actually sharp. The 4 simultaneously attacked, their knives flashing. There were no blind spots. Yet with a single sound as the knives clashed, the 4 who were assisting in the training lay sprawled on the floor, unable to get up. The young man walked off in a relaxed fashion. Give them twice the usual compensation for medical fees. A butler immediately appeared and produced a towel for the young man while bitterly smiling. Yes, young master. These 4 are considered to be within the top 10 for MMA. With your viciousness, I'm afraid no one will be willing to come in the future. Find individuals from the underworld arenas then. Those who are able to harm me will be able to win $1 million, replied the young man dryly. The butler helplessly nodded his head. Yes, young master. In addition, Yu Long's representatives have already been here for 3 days. Will you pay them a visit? The young man's visage turned cold. Yu Long? Yes, he has been implicated in Aslan's situation and has been sacked. Looks like he is here to ask for your help. 1. Old Tan is a brand of instant noodles. 2. Another brand of instant noodles. 3. Idiomatic expression that means that everything will eventually turn out for the best.